Hey guys, Syndicate here, and we are on the first Baeclast of Synthesis League. Not at all awkward intro, Raiz. Well-maintained giggle there. So let's just kind of start off with like racing and everything and all of that good stuff. So, what has everyone been up to, Mr. Method Nugiyen?
I've been racing to 100, or quote-unquote racing. It's not like there was a lot of teams this time around, so we took our sweet-ass time. But yeah, we've been doing that all week.
Nice.
And we hit it yesterday, so or around midnight. That was good. That's
So you're
nice.
saying for the this was just practice for the upcoming big group race that you guys got going on.
I mean, this is like nothing about like compared to how the big group race is gonna be.
Damn.
I'll tell you that.
Okay. Well, there's some serious contenders coming up. I
Where
don't know if
you
you heard
coming
about
up,
the other
right?
teams.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll be
I
playing.
mean, I'm looking at that as being like #1 contender right now with Waggle Goratha, you right?
Swaggle, Garatha,
and
me and Carve. But then it's also the Triple Asian team. Triple Asian.
What's the tripulation?
It's Ty, Gucci, Crying, and Camel. So
Ooh.
yeah.
How are they gonna do on like time zones?
I have no idea, but it doesn't matter. I think we're basically dead.
No, I mean, but that's pretty pog.
Were you happy with your like run this time around? If you're sort of looking at it as a pseudo practice run for what's coming?
No. I'll rate
No?
this like a 3 out of 10. I'm not
Whoa,
even kidding. I'm
that's
gonna
kinda
be
low.
I'm gonna be very serious here. I'm not. I know.
What
The
was
amount of-
disappointing about it?
Was it Ziz face-tanking Minotaur with no flosser?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I won't get into it too much if we're talking
What do you
about
mean
it.
disappointing? That was the best part of it.
It was so good. It was just like the, what the fuck, I'm dead!
And we had zero planning. This was actually just, we could have just said, hey guys, we want to race this league to 100. Okay, let's do it kind of thing. Oh, there's no competition. We're just going to half-ass it kind of thing. You know, like that kind of mindset. So, yeah,
Okay.
that was not my cup of tea doing it that way.
When you guys looking to like maybe beat the softcore guys?
I mean, I was looking to do that for sure.
Oh, okay. Damn. Miscommunication. Got to get that shit in order. I don't know.
Yes, but it's like communication has like increased tenfold already. So it's looking a lot better already.
I mean,
Yeah,
it was like your first proper race together. It was always going to be a bit rocky to sort of.
Well, it's not. It's more like, okay, so Steel was flown over like Thursday. He was like super jet lagged. He was like scoffing out a build like on a notepad on the, like while flying. I mean, this is everything. Everything that the preparation was wrong.
I will admit, I was really surprised when I heard that he was flying, because I'm like, he's going to be so fucked when he lands, because that's like not an easy flight to do either.
No, it's like a 24-hour flight and everything. Oh, no, it's. And then we like, because like we mismanaged our sleep and everything, and like it's just it was such a clusterfuck. It's okay though. We got there in the end.
So with that in mind though, what's like your goal time for the proper race then, compared to this one?
But that's a group found. I don't know, in a group found?
24 hours.
I don't know. I'm kind of like thinking like what's possible, right? Because this one was like almost 5 days played, but there was some trade league as well. I mean, I don't know, 4 days played. I don't know if that's like.
I mean,
crazy.
if you're saying that this run was like
What's
really
a
scuffed and
normal
disorganized,
SF run, Raiz?
Without flare farming the way it was now, like,
Yeah,
if we didn't have so many reps, like 5 days, I'd say.
5 days.
Yeah. Like 4 in a little bit on played. Yeah.
Okay, so we probably want to go like down to like then 3 then, I guess. Let's see. 24, 24, 24. That's 72. I mean,
It's tough. I think
I
like
know,
I don't know if how much you benefit from that, honestly.
no,
like,
that's the thing, right? I'm not sure how much you actually benefit from being like the group. You benefit, and there's like, I mean, you'll I don't know.
We were planning on doing it in 2 days, so it's good that you're planning on 3. I mean, sounds like
You're planning on doing it too. Okay, Dro.
Quick question: do you get like the special method brand coffee with like the extra racer fuel in it, or
Extra racer fuel? Coffee? We don't get any coffee.
Okay. Just curious.
Calm down, Tarke.
Hey, I'm just saying that we need to talk about doping in the esports scene, okay?
We get the horns of the energy of a bull.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. How's your SSF race been going, Raiz?
Good. I was pretty sick when I started off, so I didn't have a lot of expectations for myself. But then everybody died to a disconnect and the game crash and everything, and I was like, wow, okay, that's good. That's really good for me. And then I died to invisible projectiles in Delve. Didn't have the right reaction there, and now I rerolled, and I'm 98. I did 96 and a half. Now I'm 98, and holy shit, are people pushing? Normally, it's like nobody really cares, right? Like there's 2 guys maybe racing for first place, and then the rest of the people are just kind of like playing, but not really. They don't really care who's gonna get like 3rd, 4th, 5th. Dude, everybody's pushing so hard in the top 10. I cannot catch up for the life of me. I'm catching up a little bit. I'm currently 6th. But honestly, I don't see myself even breaking into the top 5, even if I make it to 100. It's pretty nuts. People are really taking it super seriously. And a lot of people re-rolled too. Like Oscar started late. He's really popping off. Obviously, Isla was one of the survivors of like the first batch of racers. So he's still first. Probably going to hit like 100 soon. And then Tower re-rolled. He's getting crazy XP. People really have been popping up. It's been more interesting to watch the race between like the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th place than it is to watch like the rank 1 because it's just like, oh, he's just gonna get there. And the funny part is I just casualized it too. He didn't even try. He played some random build. He's not even doing his build. He's getting like tiny amounts of XP. He just doesn't care. He just gets there anyway. Like it's so funny how he can just casually get rank 1s, no problem, dude. Really good
Competition is good though. I mean, not to not to be insensitive to your plight here, trying to get back into the top 5, but it's good that there's that sort of interest in the race.
I absolutely got my ass kicked. I never expected it to be this competitive around this time. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have re-rolled if I knew that people aren't gonna go so far. It's nuts. But yeah, I'm learning a lot, and it's really good to see how many new faces there are, really, because most of these guys aren't people who frequently participate in these races, and they don't have a whole lot of accomplishments if you like trace it from PoE racing or something. So yeah, positively surprised, although yeah, like I said, I'm getting my ass kicked, so that's not so much fun.
Nice.
Before we move on, can we talk about the real racing, which is the PlayStation launch coming out?
Dude,
are you racing on that, Tarke?
I've actually, Carv is like, you need to come do it.
Seriously?
And, yeah, it could be kind of fun. I don't know.
He's found his ladder to compete in.
Yeah. I mean, what you mean? I mean.
I'm really looking. I don't know, like the whole, because it's on the 26th, right? And the group race is on the 22nd. We gotta finish that race fast, Nugi. Somebody's gonna kick ass, and then we get on PS.
You said it's fine. You got 2-3 days. It's no problem.
I mean, there's the camera race coming up as well, right? On the 30th. So many races.
God.
Yeah. I just saw that.
Yeah, but that's a level 80 race, so that's
the camel's a 1-day thing.
I mean, let's be honest. The PlayStation race, like how long on a console, that must take like 2 weeks minimum, right?
No, that's gonna be 1 day because it's more efficient.
I don't think so. No, actually not.
Less buttons.
You can play it from bed. It'll be even better because you don't need to sleep at all. Then you can just like...
How hard is it to pick up things on a PlayStation?
I'm guessing it will work the same way that Diablo does. So basically, in Diablo, you just stand over the loot and you press X.
Well, does it work that way in the Xbox version?
I don't know.
So if you just have a build that runs around, good movement speed, you can just like run over the map, tuk, 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 tuk. You just kind of Pac-Man around.
God. You're telling me
by that, what you really mean is... like trying to get everything, you know.
Maybe.
If you
I don't
see,
know.
if you've seen how much stuff like drops on the floor, and like you need to remember you've got basic loot filters and stuff, so you just want to like.
You need to go big loot filter. Do it in a week, easily.
Oh my god! I have to play. This just means that I have to play another Death's Oath build to 100 now.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Oh, that's
how's that been going for you, by the way? I'm considering Death's Oath at some point in the future. What's your feedback?
It's ridiculous. It's really good. Honestly, even with SSF gear, it really kicks a lot of ass. It's really fast, and with things like Solstice Vigil, because I don't have that, then you can add the Despair on Blasphemy, which I don't use. I use Witchfire. It's like an extra 30% more damage. I don't have any crafted Aberrant gear. I don't have like an Aberrant helmet for Chaos Penetration. I don't have any minion gear. I don't have any Vol soul prevention damage thing either.
Minion damage gear?
Yeah, like minion damage gear, like even getting stuff on gloves or like crafting a weapon and all this sort of stuff. I use a freaking wand, and it's really strong, like really strong. Yeah, I was very positively surprised because I just made it for flare farming. I thought it's gonna be chilling, but yeah, it does well. It does a lot better. And then if you do the live version, then it's like twice as much damage too, but you struggle in survivability. But you can get like 9k ES, and then you with the Solstice you get like 15k armor with a granite too. It's really fun. I totally see myself doing it again.
Last league with that. It was the new Chaos multiplier, just like really took it
Yeah,
to the next
and
level.
then what did they give it? Like a 20% higher damage
To make up for the blood loss.
25, yeah, but that scales so freaking hard because you have to scale Death's Oath with aura nodes, you know, which increases like the base of everything. So it just scales super hard now. It's really cool.
Yeah. But what have you been up to, Octavian?
I've had one of my most scatterbrained league starts because the league has been really. I've been trying to do everything at once, and there's so many mechanics now that it's made me a little bit unfocused. I just got Uber Elder down a couple days ago. I started with Divine Ire, and it felt pretty good. It felt a little inconsistent at times because I swear to God, there's like a very low occurrence rate bug or something where the beam just doesn't actually do damage. I don't know if it's the hitbox not lining up properly with the beam or if it's actually bugged and not hitting sometimes, but it felt really inconsistent on single target as a result. Like every 6th boss that I tried to kill just wouldn't take damage sometimes. So I switched over to Stormburst, and the rework Stormburst is probably one of the most interesting new skills they've put out, in my opinion.
It's actually insane.
Yeah,
damage-wise.
It's got really good potential top-end damage. I did bring down Uber Elder with it. It wasn't a super clean fight, but I think the one weakness of it is that to access that top-end damage, you do have to be stationary for a little while, and so some end-game boss fights are a little tough with it as a result. You have to like min-max for cast speed, so you actually get a good amount of orbs out in the short amount of time you have to channel. But yeah, it's a very strong skill. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And the last few days, after getting my Atlas done and getting the end game completed and all that, I've been digging into the synthesis crafting a bit.
We'll save the big synthesis talk for later, but just very briefly. I've actually had one of my best league starts I've ever had, and everyone's telling me that I was the only person who didn't get screwed by like these conspiracy map changes, which I was going to ask you guys about in a bit. But I had super quick straight into Shaper in something like between like 20 or 30 hours in like a small like SSF private league style economy. I had like, I've done 4 Shapers so far, and I had 2 Dying Suns, a Solstice Vigil, and 1 pair of boots. So my RNG is like first pair was boots, and I'm like, oh, typical. But from my first set, I sustained 16s for another set. I then got the Dying Sun, sustained another set, got the Vigil, and I'm like, pretty good league start, pretty good. And then I got the other Dying Sun, which I ended up flipping. So that was going really well, and that was all on Soul Rend on a 5-link. Soul Rend is amazing. And that was with GMP and links as well. Like, I didn't bother swapping GMP out. Soul Rend feels really good. And then I've spent the last 2 days doing the really fun content, which is quarry farming to get Syndicate, because that's the best way of getting Syndicate currently. And yeah.
How fast can you get a safe house?
In the time it took me just playing the character normally, I stopped like mapping at 93, but again, I done bossing, so if I hadn't had any rips, probably like 94 mapping wise. I'd done 3 safe houses total in probably about 4 hours, maybe 5 hours tops of not very well set up quarry farming. I've nearly had 5 safe houses, so it's like
So about an hour.
yeah, complete light and day. Yeah, completely.
50 minutes, hour.
Yeah.
And you generate a bunch of Alva temples alongside that, incidentally.
Yeah,
too.
so you can use it to power farm Alva if you want to go for like certain corruptions. There are a couple of people in my chat who said that they'd been doing quarry farming right from the get-go, and they'd sold, between the two of them, they'd sold like 3 diadems and a flask, which is like a really big deal because the diadems going for like 10x each.
20 on Softcore
I think
Trade
he
League. There's
sold
been some
them
listed
then.
for like 18 to 20x. I don't know if they're selling at that price, but that's what they've been listed for.
He said that they'd sold them at 10, if I remember correctly. But that's big, and it's one of those things where it doesn't take anything, because you can do it with any build. I'm currently just doing it with like some random trickster with a Queen of the Forest thrown on it, not at all optimized, having to stop to kill mobs to refresh my flasks. If you did Zoom Pathfinder, you could get that down like so.
The other thing quick. You could potentially is if you have a build in the end game, you can go into the memory map and set up a bunch of like level 83 tiles banked off to a side as sort of, just to throw modifiers into. And then while you're doing the quarry farming, you collect memory fragments from the Zanas that spawn inevitably. And then you go and collect memory modifiers with those pieces as pathing pieces. And you're also setting up endgame content that you can then go and do. So you're also farming, in a way, T16s and not falling behind on that.
Yeah. It's really dumb. And it's one of those things where it's kind of like, I was talking about this a little bit, I made a video, it's kind of like, doing quarry for a couple of hours every now and again can actually be kind of fun. It feels kind of different. I compared it to, like, if any of you played Burning Crusade, like the Netherwing rep farm where you're farming the eggs, like it reminds you of that. You're not, there's no struggle, you're literally just clicking the eggs and eventually get your reward, which is the cool mount. And if you do that like a couple of hours once a week, it's okay. Doing that every day, no. So I kind of want them to kill it, but I don't want them to kill it and not make Syndicate better at all. You know what I mean? It's like, I want them to kill that and replace it with something. So if you want to farm Syndicate, you can farm Syndicate. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, the quarry farming's been a real plague for the longest time now.
Yeah.
I was very surprised that they made incursions and temples and everything so forgiving when it comes to the level requirement, because you're saying that you can literally do like quarry all time and then do like one tier 15 and it's gonna be an 82 temple or something.
Well,
Does that actually work?
I was talking about the memory map, where you can place a bunch of memories that you got
Okay.
from T16 maps,
And then you
like have those
collect
sitting.
the buffs
And
with
then
the low
you collect the memory modifiers with the low tier zones that are kind of disposable, and then you'd be sending all those buffs over to T16s, and you get to farm them later.
Is that really worth it though?
It's a strategy that I think might evolve. I know some people are messing with it. I haven't done it much yet myself. I'm going to potentially try it soon. I know Grim put together a video recently where he did a bunch of investment into some banked tiles, and it didn't seem too competitive with just doing invested maps. So it may be that the memory modifiers, even when like optimized, aren't really great at the moment.
A few things on that, because I had like an hour-long conversation with Grim this morning, because I was like, give me any notes you want me to talk about in Baeclast. Basically, even you can get it to be good, but it's really weird the way it works. So there's like a Google Doc that he made, and he listed like all of the possible modifiers you can get, and he's grouped them all up. There are tiers of the modifiers. So you can find the has a chance to drop a quality currency item. Now the lowest tier is a 1% chance on normal monsters. Then the next one is a 6% chance on magic monsters. And then the next tier is a 50% chance on rare monsters. So when it comes to collecting all these modifiers, you've got to find the right modifiers and hope that it has the right modifier of the right tier. And
But
then
that's just random, right? When you unlock it,
is there any targeting?
You can't see it before you unlock it.
Exactly. But then not only that, you also need to keep into fact that the way that you place the fragments, This is also completely random. You can get white fragments, blue fragments, and the yellow fragments. They're like maps, and they have different quant and different mods on them. So you need to find the right fragment with the right quant, and you don't know how many mobs are in that because you don't know like how big or small it is or whatever.
I am not sure. Are you sure on that? Because do they not has he checked whether or not it coincides with whenever you run the fragment in the map and the layout? Is that not the same layout you get?
I don't know. This was just what he was telling me. That he said that
that's what I want to know.
He said that there was no way of knowing exactly if you got the good layout or not. So he found it frustrating because like you kind of had to guess what you like. He thinks this is a good layout, so he sets up a small path. Also, that his most recent thing is it's kind of like he thinks doing the really long path is kind of a trap because there's a cap to the amount of global modifiers that you can get. So the idea is the more condensed the modifiers are, the better because they all scale off each other. Because they all have all the quant, they all add all the extra monsters. It'd be like if you were, super juicing a map. It's like, okay, we've got monsters treasure, we have all the strong boxes, let's put everything into this one map rather than spreading it really thinly across everything.
That's what I've been thinking people will end up doing since I watched Iggy's video on the topic, where instead of making these really long paths and trying to maintain them all, because that's also really like intensive both in terms of pieces and in terms of just mental fortitude, you sort of choose one quadrant of your chart that you're not going to be running, and you place a bunch of pieces over there in a little grid, and you start banking in modifiers into those ones, and you collect modifiers from the rest of the chart.
Yeah.
But basically, to talk about the actual reward of it, so there are a couple of very valuable mods. The main one is obviously stuff like fossils, because it's like fossils are good. The divination card one, apparently it has its own special weighting, which is different to like div card boxes. And the synthesis chests can be really good, but that mod is stupid. Basically, there's a mod which adds chests in quotations, which are like strong boxes. You click the chest and monsters pop out. The chests don't have any labeling. They don't have like a name tag or anything, and they're really easy to miss. And the chests can like spawn in the decay. So I'd had the mod on my Nexus before and always assumed it was just like extra chests at the end. And then I was watching Grim's video and he clicked a chest and I'm like, wait, that's what they are? Oh, I had no idea. So basically, it can be rewarding if you get lucky and you get all the right setup. But you can plan it out really intricately and still get kind of lackluster rewards. And that's why it's kind of... So I really like the system, but the first draft of it just doesn't work. It's one of the things where if they took all of these different tiers and they just condensed it down, if they made the rewards like really rewarding, but way less common, it would be better. It's kind of like, you know how in Delve, when you see the currency, you're like, oh, I'll get at least like a couple of chaos guaranteed. Now it's kind of like, oh, you see there might be a reward, the reward might be shit, but you can also fail the reward. And that's the thing. This is like the only league which has a super hard fail system built in, and then it's not more rewarding than everything else. And that's weird to me, because it's like you can completely brick your entire run by failing at the wrong time. And
yeah, that part is pretty rough.
I would say arguably, and I think this is what DG thinks as well. I would assume, arguably, this is the most rewarding league ever, because you can create the most powerful items ever. Right, in that sense. So right. So it's like, so it's, though for the average player, this will not be the case, right? Don't get me wrong. This will not give. Have you seen the gloves? Right, you can make 400 ES gloves. I mean, this is absolutely insane.
Well, okay, so this is actually one thing which I think is kind of interesting. Is it's kind of safe to say that theoretically, this league has something for every kind of player, right? You have if you're someone who just likes to map and doesn't want to worry with other stuff, you have the memory fragment zones, which is just like a map within a map. So that's just free density. If you're someone who's into like super high-end crafting, like Octavian has, you can focus all in on the crafting. If you're someone who really likes like super sexant blocking stuff, theoretically you have the memory nexus if it was like rewarding enough. And then if you're someone who's just kind of casual and you just want to experience cool stuff, you have all the cool lore. So theoretically, there's something for every kind of player. It's just right now, it's kind of like the try-hard crafting guys sort of have what they want. And then like the reason why I say sort of is the fact that essences and fossils are disabled. And until they're enabled, you can't do the crafting properly.
Yeah, but it's only on Fractured, though, apparently.
On top of that, the system is so opaque that it's very difficult for a large number of people to realize, oh, hey, this item that I just dropped might be worth it to someone. I should list it. So there's probably a ton of things being generated. Like, for instance, I was trying to make Unwavering Stance boots for one of my builds to replace Calm's Roots. In order to do that, I need a total stun and block recovery that requires a T1 hybrid and a T1 stun and block recovery roll on all 3 pairs of boots going into the synthesis crafting device. No one fucking lists boots with fractured stun and block recovery. They just vendor those because why wouldn't they? It's a garbage roll in every other circumstance.
It's like in Syndicate League, right? If Octavian wants to push his delve really deep, what does he do? He buys the Sulfite Scarab. No one's vendoring the Sulfite Scarab because you go, ooh, Scarab, I can sell this for a lot on PoE Trade. Whereas when someone's like, ooh, stun and block recovery boots, oh, I bet I can sell this to Octavian for the big bank, you know, it's like...
Basically, as a rule, for anyone wondering, does my item potentially have value? If it's got a T1 roll of something, it could. Like, if it's got a T1 fractured roll of a thing, you should go to the site on PoEDB, look what that corresponds to as an implicit, and if that implicit seems worthwhile, list it, see if you get offers. Because, like, stun and block recovery, reduced attribute requirements, fucking light radius, have good implicits that people want. Just, if it's got a T1 roll, then it's going to correspond to the high-level implicits. If it's a low-tier roll, it probably isn't worth something.
Or if it's even just, if it's like a high eye-level base, like if it's like any like ES base, like eye-level 80+, it's probably worth something to someone as well.
So I'll say, so a lot of people like freaked out when I said it was like high reward because this is like the highest potential reward, right? That doesn't mean that it's a good system. And no, I was trying to explain the the logic behind why the way that GG has built this, because I think the I think actually the system is terrible. I think it's a terrible system for almost everyone except for like the 1%. I actually think that. So what you end up with exactly what Octavian did. You would have to go to PoEDB to check out, what does this 1T run roll correspond with? So then you go on PoE Trade. Is anyone even interested in that? You have like all these third-party systems that you have to go through before you even get the trade out.
You know what makes the PoEDB thing even worse?
It's awful. It's awful for anyone who actually wants to engage with it because it requires so many steps to figure out whether or not it's even worth anything.
And for anyone in solo self-found, it's pretty much just entirely random. But, like, you're gonna get access to so few fractured bases that like it's really hard to actually synthesize
just
something.
Really quickly, just since you mentioned PoEDB, the biggest issue with PoEDB is that even if someone knows to go on PoEDB to craft the mods, the way that the tiers are listed on PoEDB is confusing as fuck. Yes. So Ziggy covered this in his most recent video, if anyone hasn't seen this, but to get the tier 1 mod, it says next to it. So for example, I need Arcane Surge on hit. It says 200 in. And people are like, how the hell can you ever get 200 in on a ring? That's impossible. You don't need 200 in. You need 161 to 200 in. Because the tier beneath it is 160. Yeah. So
you need to break the previous tier.
Exactly. So even if you know that you want to craft something, and even if you know to use PoEDB, and even if you can find the page, you then also need to know how the tiers work. Apparently they changed it now, but it's one of those things of, if someone looked up a week ago, they might not know that they've changed it now to then check it again. So
is the problem just fundamental to a system that's this expansive, though, where like everything has a dozen tiers and every role is corresponding to an implicit? Because how do you communicate that in game? How do you do that? Do you have like, when you synthesize 3 things, you have a bunch of different bars filling up that just cover your whole screen?
Pretty much. You take the tool and you put it in game. I mean, it's like an index. It's
Go
like
on, Raiz.
bestiary, but on steroids, right? Because
Yeah.
at least in bestiary,
Yeah,
even
I
if
mean,
you didn't
remember-
know something's worth it, you still had it. So then when you find out something's worth something, you're like, oh, I have this beast all along that was worth 5x. But with this, it's like, oh, I've been vendoring this thing all along.
But just
Fuck
purely
me.
from a standpoint of UI, I remember there were, and legitimate ones, but there were hundreds of complaints in Bestiary that the UI was like unapproachable. You had no idea what it was you were even looking at. And if we were to take all the information in PoEDB about a set of 3 items being synthesized together and throw that at the player in game, I don't think it would solve the problem. It would for people who like know what they're looking at. It would be useful, but it wouldn't make it so that people who have no idea what's happening have a better idea what's happening. They just see a lot of text and not understand.
Okay, I'll tell you what you need in game for people to figure things out and for it to be interesting for people to actually search. You need something where you can put in, what if I have 100 fires? What will that give me? What does that correspond to in game? Is it 100 fires equals, and then it gives you like, this is the implicit. And if you have that, you can just search the different tools. Oh, I found stun block recovery. Oh, let's just put in stun block recovery.
You could have
Oh, nice.
you could have something similar to what
Easy
Bestiary
ways
does,
of looking it up.
where you get that handbook of all the different beasts. You could have something like that for synthesis, where when you synthesize items, the rules get added to a little, like, I don't know, scientific journal or something.
What-
wanna
You
make
guys
it
don't
dramatic.
think it's weighted in any way? Like that's the thing, because they represented it as like, try and figure this shit out, when it's like, hey, it's random amongst all the affixes. Don't you think there's like some combinations of affixes that are weighted towards a certain result, and
They're
that's why
like-
they wouldn't have done something like that? So like, yeah, of course, if you have 6 different affixes and let's say one of them is accuracy and one of them is strength, if maybe in this special combination of things, if you combine accuracy and strength with like fire damage, then it's weighted more towards like getting strength or something. Because like this, it just doesn't make sense that they wouldn't do that from the very beginning. What Nugi mentioned, that you could like just work your way towards something by having an idea of what you
can.
might need.
Do that. That's exactly what you can do. You can okay. So I'll explain what you do. You will collect, like, say 3. Like that's if you want like onslaught and boots. What you need is, if you want to have it guaranteed, you can go for a chance as well. But let's say you want it guaranteed. You buy 3 pair of boots, 30, 30, 35 on the fractured. Then you scour regal, then annul on all of them. Then you're left with like 3 fractured rolls, equivalating to a total of 95, which will break the lower bracket of the previous tier, which puts you into onslaught, and you guarantee it every time.
Well, it's
Yeah,
a
but
50-50.
you don't
'cause
know this unless you go on the website. Like
it's a
that's
50-50.
No, yeah, but
It can hit onslaught or
That's what I'm
8%
talking
movement
about.
speed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But okay, then you would need
Some,
what?
some of the
Another one?
top end tiers have multiple
Yeah.
rolls.
Ah, okay.
The one thing which I just realized now, which they obviously haven't done system, but it would have been cool if they did do this system. You know how you captured beasts, you would unlock a recipe, and we'd have that fun little thing that would spam pop up on a screen? What would have been cool is if, as you unlocked memories, he was like, yo, I remember how to craft this thing now. You need this, and you can craft that. That would have been sick.
Yeah.
So a recipe book again, like
Yeah, but instead
Like
of
the
it
Bestiary
just being there from the get-go, it's kind of like they have the quests built in, and then you have a very early tutorial. Because it could have been like the first time you meet Kavas, he's like, hey, this is how you put 10% movement speed on boots. And people were like, oh, cool. And now I've got movement speed boots while leveling. And then you upgrade the higher tiers, and people are like, okay, so I need to collect these together. Need to do
you could
that.
even have, like, as rewards for completing a fractured memory for the first time, you could
Yeah.
give you specific items that are used in specific recipes.
Oh, that, yes.
Yeah, but like this shit, like what you guys are talking about, this shit's really cool. Like that's the good part of this. For instance, a lot of people had a big problem with the way how unintuitive it was, due to the fact that the items wouldn't be determined by the fractured mods, but instead
the total,
random
all the
affixes that
rolls.
it's got.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people really freaked out about that it was a
Yeah.
negative. But honestly, the way you can manipulate it with the
Yeah.
bench, I think that's a really cool part of the system. You just don't really know like an endpoint of where you're trying to get, unless it's, well, you go on an external website, because it's not displayed anything in game.
Yeah.
So I think even like the tool for like what sort of breakpoints you need to get, that's available online, even having that just on the
Yeah.
synthesizing machine thing, I don't think it would be that confusing. Like when somebody just alt tabs an item and he sees 60 to 69 life, tier 4, blah blah blah, like all these sort of stats. This is just another system that pairs up with that. Like, is it not confusing? No, it's fucking confusing, but it's just one more thing.
I mean,
piled
I
up to the
think
list of
I think the
confusing
one
things in
thing
PoE.
that's a bit oversimplified that is the sheer list of mods, because it's not like one or two. There are a lot
There are
of mods.
so many.
I think
went over
I
the
think
list.
it's genuinely over 1,000 or something ridiculous. There's a lot of modifiers.
Well over, I'd
there.
say.
Yeah.
I think it's important that you give players like something to look forward to with systems like these, something they can build towards. If you feel like you're just like haphazardly going through things and like, okay, let me try some random. Okay, imagine this. You spend like a good few hours on your first day to do synthesized mods. You collect like some nice items. You go, oh, these are good implicits, right? So you get the fractured mods. Let's say, oh, you get a nice life roll, some resist. You've seen the video, you've seen the preview, and you put it in, and you get like one deflect or whatever. And you thought you'd get some life. Like, fuck this. What a waste of time. That's what you're left with.
It's a system that if you don't know what you're doing is essentially just random.
Yeah.
And like also as well as that, because you're very unlikely to be collecting a lot of a single stat, you're never going to get a good roll either if you just put in a bunch of, random bases, because you're never going to break the breakpoint of like 150 life or, 131 stun and block recovery or whatever you need. That's just not going to happen by chance.
I think one of the biggest issues of this is also, it's the same issue that I think happened with Beshri. You know how when Beshri first came out, the crafts didn't work for the first 24 hours? So a lot of people didn't engage with it early, so they didn't then feel the need to go back to engage with it. Because we've had all of this shenanigans with the portals breaking in the Memory Nexus, if you have a long chain, you only have one inventory. You can't keep teleporting back to stash. So I've been in the case where it's like, okay, do I pick up this synthesized item, or do I pick up this unique that I know I can sell for this much? So even though you actually want to pick up the synthesized items to stash to then craft with later, you physically can't because the portals don't work, because you're on that limited stash space. So even if you want to pick everything up, you can't. And most people just don't like picking up loot. Like
something that I found that's fairly accessible that a lot of people could probably. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Tarke. I didn't realize
that was
still
it.
going on
That was done. That was done. Yeah.
But something that's pretty accessible that I think a lot of people could incorporate as something that they can try and do if they want to interact with the system, but they don't want to go into like a ton of depth and look through the whole list. Jewels are pretty forgiving because with jewels, regular jewels, the eye level doesn't matter. So you can use any that are listed regardless of the eye level, as long as it has the roll you want. And you can get some pretty good implicits. There's very small ranges on the rolls as well, so it's not too hard to break the point that you need to get the roll you want, because there's just not massive ranges. It's not like a life roll on a chess piece that can go from like 9 to 109. It's going to go from like 2 to 8 or something if we're talking about crit multi, or 12 or so. So I've crafted a handful of regular jewels with crit multi implicits, and like once you've got 4 or 5 of those in your build, it's an extra like 20 crit multi or 16 crit multi, and that's moderately impactful and pretty easy to do. You buy 3 jewels with fractured locked in explicit crit multi. You make sure you get more than, I think, 11 is the breakpoint, and you scour, regal, annul, craft. It's a little bit expensive to get the base, but then you have a higher quality jewel base. You can even guarantee the base type. There's only 3. There's Cobalt, Viridian, and the other one that I can't remember.
I think what we're going to end up with, like next Baeclast, we're going to be talking about how how everyone complains about the annulment or being too expensive.
Yeah,
I'm not even like once people like catch on to this, like really, like, I could see it like just skyrocket.
It's
Regals probably
as
well.
Thing, though.
Will go up.
But it's just like, okay, but then the complaint will be, how does GDG expect us to play this league while we're paying like 40 chaos per annulment orb, right? It's like,
it's going to be worse than that, though, because a lot of people still can't mastercraft their items because they haven't got all the Syndicate stuff. So the more access people have to Syndicate, the more likely they are to start multi-modding their own weapons, and that eats up a lot of annuls. So it's like, by the time that's like most people are able to start doing their cool crafts is probably when this gets their first few patches. So it's a bit...
Yeah.
I've actually been stockpiling annuls in my private league for when I can do stuff with it. But yeah, go on.
The crafting doesn't end once you have your synthesized item. Like, that's a base. You're just making a crafting base. And then from there, you're going to do even more extensive crafting, presumably investing a bunch because it was expensive to get that. You know, like bows with +1 socketed gems locked in are quickly rising in price. So if you're taking the time to buy up a bunch of those and make a +1 gems bow implicit, hell yeah, you're going to invest a bunch of currency into crafting on it once you have the base.
Yeah, but like realistically, for just about 90% of the things that somebody wants to get as an implicit, getting a tier 1 mod is not particularly challenging. But even if you go by current annulment prices, like these are pretty big dick items. I mean,
Yeah.
it should be expensive, I think. No, like
Oh, I'm not
comparable to
complaining.
multi-modding
It's
and what
just-
it was.
Yeah.
No. I don't necessarily see that as a negative. If somebody's willing to invest that sort of currency, that makes sense. It's like kind of like what multi-modding was, but you got to do it ×3 most of the time. So
the only
good luck.
issue is that because people who are doing those crazy crafts for +1 bow implicit bows and ES implicit bow regalias and stuff are demanding the annuls the same way that someone who's like just trying to interact with it at the lower end might be. It's gonna be that there's no like middle to crafting with synthesis, or at least no deterministic one, because you can like just regal on all three and not annul, and then have a worse chance of hitting what you want, but still potentially hit it.
It's weird to me how demanding the tier 3 mods are, to be honest. You would think that on most of them, like the build defining things would be just a lot more accessible. Well, I don't know. An example is tier 3 chaos multiplier. That's something that's useful for me that I looked up in particular. Like you have to get 3 tier 2 or tier 1 chaos multiplier wands to get a chance at 5% more damage, which is like if you were to alteration that's like 8,000 alterations or something.
Yeah, the high tier more multi is like a 1 in 1,000.
That's why.
And that's versus the bench where if you just do the bench, then it costs you like 10 chaos and then you get it 30% of the time. It's like dog.
That's why this is like, I think what we're meant to be comparing this to are Vol Orbs, because it's taking up the same slot. It's taking up the implicit. And if you think about how difficult it is to access that power of a corruption on your Counsheart, for instance, like that is comparably expensive, potentially. You could brick 5 Counshearts trying to do that. And then what you access is, in a lot of cases, similar in power. You got +1 gems as an implicit you can go for. You got local energy.
+1 comes hard. Oh my god.
Then +1 gems Counsheart, not great, but
that's crazy.
Pretty good in some other bases. So
would it be
but the issue is like
go on.
It's front and center as a league mechanic, even though it's like comparable in terms of its power and in terms of how you're supposed to be using it to a side thing that you do once your gear is all done, and the final step in crafting, so to speak, with Vol Orbs.
I think most people that actually engage with the system enough, I think they're starting to understand that there's a lot of potential for it. It's just getting to that point is super unintuitive and freaking annoying, especially since we kind of like jumped from it, but the gameplay situation is also something that I think a lot of people are just displeased with. So
the
eventually,
amount of bugs
once
coming
you're
into
there,
the
it
league
makes
was
sense.
like not good.
Yeah, but do you guys think they can potentially fix it at this point? Like even the crafting, like the crafting stuff, I would imagine is one of the simpler things because they can just throw a bunch of text at us, and it won't be pretty, but it'll work. But from a gameplay point of view, is there really any way to
definitely
salvage the Nexus?
No, I think like it's one of those things where like we just spent the last however like 30-40 minutes or whatever like bitching about it. There's enough core things in there that I could see this working. The one thing that really scares me about this system is I don't want them to overreact to it in the way that I think they did to Bestiary, where it's kind of like for the people who do enjoy elements of the current system, it gets dumbed down so much for the following leagues that we're then left with a hollow system. That's what scares me. That's the one thing that I'm worried about.
I would like them to make the Nexus a little bit more customizable, like that you felt that you can like move it. It felt like it's such a grind to like find the right pieces, and I was like, okay, this is not the right piece, not the right piece, not the right piece. Okay, so
Well, the biggest thing is that it feels really punishing. At least that's what it was for me. That the better I made my Nexus and the more connections I made, the further I traveled. I had to travel for modifiers,
Mhm.
and then I had to delete zones. So then I would allow for the modifiers to spawn closer to my Nexus. Otherwise, like I had to travel. It felt pretty good, honestly, on a completely fresh Nexus. It initially felt pretty alright, but as it progressed, it always got to a point where I'm just like, shit, I have to start deleting pieces. Otherwise, this is just too much for me, and it's just not worth the time.
For me,
And I
it
don't
feels
really know
like
how you can make that intuitive.
for me, after like going from a clean Nexus to having pathed on it a bunch, it feels like that feeling of having mapped all day and having a big dump tab that I have to now. Like it's
Oh,
just this mental weight of having all of these pieces placed and having to path around them and figure it all out. Like 2 or 3 times now, it's gotten to the point where like, fuck it, I'm just gonna delete half these things. I could probably
Yeah.
get some more value out of them, but I'm just gonna
Yeah.
delete some of them.
yeah. Like
And I
you
think
know what? It's such a bad feeling because you're like, I really don't want to delete these pieces. It makes no sense, especially if they've got like 1 or 2, 3, 4, whatever modifiers on them. It's such a bad feeling, but you know that it's gonna take you way too long to figure out how to get there. That you might as well just delete it. And that's like, as that feeling sinks
Mhm.
in, it just gets worse and worse.
It would be like if for some reason you had to think about the map that you would run 3 maps ago while you're running the map that you're currently running.
Yeah.
And it gets to be a bit much eventually.
One thing I said, which I think would honestly fix a lot of these problems. So when you get the frags, you get them with random charges, 2 and 3, 2 and 3. The reason why they did that probably was so that you didn't completely finish your run all in one go. So you have some which will have 1 charge left to make people want to rebuild their path. I think if we always had the same amount of charges, people's Nexus board would wipe much more consistently. Because
I don't
you'd have
get
a
that.
set
Why did
run
they
of...
do that?
Because that
Yeah, I don't know.
they wanted it. I think the reason why they did it was it's like they liked the idea of like, oh, you've got to like patch it up and everything. But if it was always a run of 3, then it means that you would do your long path, you'd buff it up twice, you'd run it, and then that whole top area would be completely empty again. And you wouldn't have that feeling of like, I'm bogged down with half of a path here and half of a path there. I think if it
Not
was...
necessarily. What if they increase the amount of amplifier that spawns? Like, because amplifiers aren't particularly powerful, but you can travel to them and they kind of do the job when you need them to. Like, if you've got an 83 or an 84 piece and you put it on like 100% increased XP, like that's going to be pretty freaking impactful. So instead of rather dumbing it down to like making it worse where you have to patch it because you feel like you fucked up, instead by increasing the amount of amplifiers and maybe making it so that areas take longer to decay, you can make it so that it feels like, oh, I did this right, therefore I have to patch it, which is probably a better thing, you know?
I think that might make it... I think I really liked Grimm's suggestion that they make the rewards much more powerful, but far less of them proc on the map. Because currently you have the situation where you have too many rewards, so you can't pick them all up, and then the rewards block where you want to go. So if you're going for a boss, a reward literally stops you. So being rewarded is a bad thing. So if there were like, if there were, instead of it being 10 rewards, only 1 reward, but when it procs, you're like, yes, I want that, then it'd feel a lot better. Because currently we have the system where you want to route to the rewards, you want to route to the bosses, and while doing that, you need to route through the yellow glowy modifiers. And there's too many things that we have to route through. So we need
And if
less
you,
things, not more. Sorry.
If you shrank the number of factors as well, then you'd end up with the problem of having too small an inventory space for your memory fragments being less of an issue. Because if you only need to path to like half a dozen things rather than a dozen things, then having fewer pieces isn't as big of a problem, at least per inventory. It would still be an annoyance every 10 maps getting that message and having to stop, but you'd be able to use them up faster and feel like you got more value out of them.
Yeah, but wouldn't that just like your guys' suggestions kind of emphasize on what Tarke found to be kind of annoying with finding the pieces? Because then you would just run a quarry to find all the right pieces, and then path out to one like big node and get that shit done, you know?
Mm.
But then you would have to and then
If you-
return to that. You might just be forced into running lower level content more and more.
upping the baseline value of a piece. I think GGG really wanted this league to try and push the zones as the rewards, which is why like the rewards that you're collecting from the reward floating platforms aren't as valuable. Like the box is full of stuff. They can be nice, but they're not like crazy ridiculous. And you have these memory modifiers that stack tons and tons of modifiers on your zones. And then as well as that, that's better if you're doing higher level content. So this was sort of a way to push away from quarry farming and away from harbor bridge farming, and people were complaining about that the last few leagues, so I imagine that's why they wanted to go this direction with the mechanic. But it's a little unintuitive at first, and I think as well it's still not quite rewarding enough if you're even looking at the zones as the rewards.
Right, but we're looking at this as two separate things, right? Right now it doesn't feel like the crafting is particularly tied down to the Nexus itself. Maybe this is due to the fact that you can obtain fractured items outside of the Nexus. But I think when it comes to crafting, once you got it down, once it's explained enough, and like you have the information, it can be so rewarding, like extremely, like Nugi mentioned previously.
Yeah.
But somehow these two things are completely separate from each other. Like you don't feel like by progressing through your Nexus, you're building up to an item, which is the big reward. It feels like you have to get shit done on the Nexus, and it's just not rewarding enough.
You know what I would like? I would like if there's like some of the boxes on the memory map will give you like memory horizon orbs. So you could kind of like with the path, you know, when you collect some really good ones, but it doesn't fit. Instead of having to go back and like collect them, but you found the really good one, I'd like to like restructure like how it would path, making it into a 4 or a 3 or a straight way or something like that. It really bothers me how like finicky you have to be all the time with these pieces, especially when you find a good one.
Right? I feel like I'm too stupid to understand the implications of that. That's my problem. I feel like it works like the way it does right now for a reason, but I just can't figure it out. So I'm like all for the idea, but there must be something more to it. Otherwise, they would have made it like that, right? Like there has to be something why you can't move these things around. It is so freaking annoying. Like maybe it just breaks the system in some way. I don't know. I'm not much of a board person.
It would make it too powerful, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it would be a very powerful tool, but it would just make it more engaging, and you wouldn't have to spam. Anytime they add something where you have to spam zones to like recorrect or fix, I think is terrible. Right? Oh, just run more quarries.
I think that they were worried that the league was going to be too rewarding. I've been spammed this one image. I'll post it in Discord. I've been spammed this by like 50 different people today. This is a screenshot, unless it's been doctored and they're trying to like catch me out. Apparently this is a screenshot from the trailer that I just put in Discord.
Yeah, they used to have global mods. Yeah,
they used to have global mods, but if you actually look at what the mods give, a lot of the mods there don't exist currently and have high... I'll spam it in chat. And they have higher like numbers. So for example, synthesized monsters have a 10% chance to drop a currency shard. Synthesized monsters on live is 1%. So it went from a 10% to a 1%. The area contains 40 additional abyss bone chests. That doesn't exist. So there are mods which just don't exist currently. And there are ones that just got legit nerfed by 10%.
But aren't these also different? I remember because the trailer came out before Chris was on Baeclast, and he kind of explained that previously it was global mods, and now the global mods are like chaining mobs. So that would like further emphasize on it.
Yeah, from what I understood, the way that it worked when they were putting out release information was any piece that you got had a global mod like assigned to it, and when you added that piece to your chart, it would proliferate that global mod throughout the chart. So basically memory modifiers, as we understand them in the current implementation, didn't really exist, and placing a piece caused a memory modifier effect to happen.
So yeah.
Boo. Ooh. That's why when they make it so you have to chase these things all the time, we need to have more agency in how we like construct our map. That's what I feel whenever I run it. It gets way too like finicky, where you always have to like, you have to think so much. You have to like plan out when you're mapping. Oh, is this a 2-piece? Do I just scrap this? Do I just like leave immediately, go on to my next map until I finally, because you can see it when you enter, right? whether or not you get a 3-piece or a 4-piece or a 2-piece, and you have to like mentally think, oh, what did I have? What did I need to make my perfect like structure in there to like make it really nice? This just it sucks.
Is it getting better for you guys? Like, I feel like I really struggled with that initially, and now it's like getting better. I don't know if it's ever gonna get to a point where I'm gonna feel like it's comfortable, but maybe.
I mean, it does get better over time, sure.
Mm.
Personally, I enjoy the core gameplay. Like, I think the memory zones are cool. I just don't think I don't necessarily think it's worth my time. Like, whenever I do it, I enjoy it. It's just after I do it, I'm kind of like, maybe it'll be better next time. That's the one thing. Like, I feel like it works in maps perfect. The decay can be a bit weird, but in maps, I think it works perfect. With the Nexus, I've enjoyed planning it out, and then when I do it, it's just kind of like, I just wish that it was a bit better, you know? It's like, it was okay, I guess. And then I go back to it.
I think maybe it could use a little bit more identity in terms of like what it actually rewards. Because like right now, you're just kind of getting a bunch of random crap. You know, you're just getting like currency drops. You're getting maybe a map, though their map drop rates are really bad. You're getting like breach splinters sometimes, fossils sometimes. They could lean into the crafting system for that. You know, make it so that you get double fractured or triple fractured items way more commonly when you're running your memory nexus if you have certain memory modifiers applied to it, or you know, if you have a really good puzzle piece that's decaying and then it happens to drop, just spits out tons of fractured mods that have a higher chance to be double fractured. Like with the way the community has currently received the crafting system, that maybe wouldn't be super well received as a buff to it, but I think theoretically it could be a good buff if the crafting system were more widely understood and better received. And it would be more thematic as well. You know, like when you're trying to farm for fractured items, you go to the memory nexus and you run your big chain that will give you a bunch of fractured items.
What's really crazy about the whole fractured item thing was, I don't know if like this is something that we can't do because of the essence or fossils, just because it's super rare, but if you have 3 fractured mods, then you can create 3 implicit items, which is insane. Like that's crazy that you can make like 3 implicit items. So like the potential's there. It's just like I'm just waiting for the fix or the patch.
That's why I'm saying like
yeah.
they could lean into that with the Nexus and make it so that like that would maybe even pull more people into the crafting system potentially. I don't know. Like make it so that it has just more of an identity of when I want X, I do Y. When I want fossils, I go to Delve. When I want to map and get map returns, I do high invested maps. When I want, you know, enchantments, I go run lab. When I want fractured items, I go run the memory nexus. And it would give it a place in the game.
See, but I don't think they intended for us to run every piece. Like the way it is with the pieces and everything, we're all constantly trying to, like what Nugi mentioned, we're constantly trying to troubleshoot and just gets really exhausting. I don't think when they implemented it, they were like, oh yeah, when you have 10, you run 10. When you're like, you have 1, you run 1. You cannot waste any of these things. And that just adds on top of the time. So what I'm thinking is, what really would be a system where if we assume that end game wise, due to the crafting, once people get familiar enough with it, it's rewarding enough. I'm not saying necessarily that it is or isn't, or that's in particular is like the best reward. Like what could they do to make it more intuitive from the beginning and more rewarding, but then to not make it too powerful in the very end game?
Okay, so one thing, Raiz, in the beginning, you couldn't actually, you had to place them down before you can delete them even. They fixed that, right? So now you can just delete them off the chart. But in the beginning, you couldn't. You had to actually go in and actively place it down.
Oh, you mean like, okay, so
you're actually forced into to like clear your whole stash. That was like one of the worst things about it.
That's one thing. So this is ignoring whether people like the league or dislike the league. The main other big thing that I've been seeing a lot of recently on Reddit is this whole, people really don't seem to like the fact that they can't choose when they engage with the mechanic. It's the fact that you delve when you hit the sulfite cap, you alva when you have your 11 temples, you nexus when you get your 10, or you just ignore it forever and you feel like you're just ignoring it. Like, that's one thing. And we spoke about this a bit when we said with Betrayal, when they first talked about the master rework. I don't necessarily think it's an issue that GGG clearly wants us on a schedule, but I do think that it's a bit much every league adding a new schedule. I feel like they need to stagger that out. You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
So, for example, we had Incursion was the first time we had to, every 11 incursions, we had to run the temple. That was the first time.
Like that? Okay.
So
yeah,
then
yeah.
Delve, it was then Soul Fight. So we had to delve when we filled our Soul Fight. And then Betrayal was all of that in the core game. But now we also have this other thing on top.
I feel guilty about that, you know, because I really welcomed that. I was like, oh man, this mapping shit, it's always the same thing. Like, I need something to break up the gameplay. Incursion sounds like it's perfect. But then it was kind of weird in the way that, yeah, the temple would break up the gameplay way too much. It felt too intrusive. And then they continued to pile mechanics on top of it. And yeah, this one is like one too many, I think. Maybe it would have been fine for me if Syndicate didn't exist, because Syndicate kind of does that a little bit. But I don't know. This seems like a better system. That it's going to be a better system when they make it into the 10%, you know, if it were to go core than it is now, because right now it's just a lot.
This would feel horrible as a 10%. Right, okay. If they
No, I don't mean like 10%, but
no,
you know.
I honestly, I would actually be really fucking pissed off, because it's the thing is, like, right now I actually like the puzzle piece thing. I just feel like it's not rewarding enough. I would be so fucking annoyed if they finally made it rewarding enough, and then I couldn't choose to do it when I want to do it. Right now, I want to do Syndicate, so I'm farming fucking Quarry. I don't want to farm Quarry. I just want to, like, right now, right, I'm triggered, dude. Right now, I just want to engage with the league mechanic, right? So if I want a Syndicate,
play the game.
I should be able to play fucking Syndicate. I don't want to play Quarry. I don't want to play Quarry next fucking league to deal with the Memory Nexus. If they make Memory Nexus good, I just want to play Memory Nexus. Okay, I'm done.
Is it time for GGG to start pulling back some of these league mechanics? They've mentioned it in some of their PR stuff. They've mentioned it on, like, you know, interviews and podcasts and that sort of thing. Do you think we need to take away a mechanic?
This league is not going core.
It has to go core.
There's
No, it
no
doesn't.
way.
This definitely does not have to go core.
This is their first league they've ever had in-game cutscenes. They've done all of the lore. Whether you want it to go core or not, there's no way they didn't design this to go core. This is clearly setting up Atlas 2.0.
They could drop it if it's, like, really poorly received.
I mean, they could, but how expensive?
There's been a
is that?
lot of talk about it for sure,
of-
but, like,
I mean, okay, Bestiary didn't go core immediately, right?
No.
I mean, we could have a repeat of that. I could see that happening.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything with Bestiary, really.
They
Like, not
completely they completely lobotomized it. But just very briefly though. So
Same with Incursion.
let's say theoretically that this never went back into the core game, and someone new starts playing the game a year from now, and they're like, Raiz, who's this Zana character? She seems really interesting. And you're like, oh, that's the Shaper's daughter. Oh, is there any
Right,
cool
the whole
story behind that? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So a year ago, for 3 months, we had all of these little cutscenes. So if you go on YouTube and you try and find some random stuff, you could maybe find the gameplay.
Wait,
but
how
that
do you
doesn't exist anymore.
How do you think synthesis ties down to that?
What?
It's not related. It's not her memories. Like, what?
Do you know?
Have you done any of the league content?
you're level 98, right?
No.
What? What are you guys talking about? How so?
Are you okay? Are you honestly trying to, like, troll?
No. Like, it's a random of different stories from different people, of course, made by Kavas, of course. But it's not a backstory for her.
Do you know who Kavas is?
Do you know who Kavas is?
Yes.
Tell
Yes.
me.
We've
Yeah,
reached
come on.
these 6
Okay,
minutes.
just
Come on.
briefly, for anyone who doesn't want to be spoiled, I'm gonna do this when the spoiler zone is over. So people on YouTube, you can mute. When I do this again, you can unmute. Okay, so spoilers are starting. Kavas is the guy who forced Shaper to unlock the Atlas in the first place, and was why Atlas got trapped in there, and his guardians got corrupted, and that's who, like, all the guardians are.
Yeah,
So-
we've known this for 2 years now. What then? We've known this for 2 years.
Yeah, but we didn't know that was Kavas, and this whole thing was setting
Who
up.
cares? What? Who
So
gives a fuck
you're
about
saying
that?
the lore we've received this league is
You know his name now, that's
enough. Like it
crazy.
doesn't impact the main story.
I don't think so at all. No, I think there's going to be more and more of this. It's a bunch of random stories filled in throughout the thing, but
I mean, yeah, I don't think the little bits of expositional lore that we're getting in the memory fragments are important, but like the boss fights in the memory map itself with Kavas and his minions, and I haven't even gone through all of those yet. I still need to progress that, but those seem fairly significant.
I think
to
you
me.
guys are thinking very small with this. Like, oh, they did voice acting. This is going core. This game mechanic is going core because they did voice acting for it for a bunch of random stories. Come on.
No.
I mean, they're building a story, right?
It's a massive world, but okay, the spoilers are over. You can unmute. Okay, so not only did they have to script all of those lines, voice acting is so expensive. It's so much world building, and then they had to get multiple voice actors to do all of the lines over and over again, and they're trying to like establish and build and develop a world, right? That isn't like, oh, should we do all this really cool world building just to like throw it away? They clearly, whether you like it or not, they clearly intended for it to go core. You don't do all of this world building just to piss it up the wall.
I don't feel so. I don't feel so at all.
Okay.
It's like picking up the random freaking rocks that tell you a story. I see it as the same thing. I would never imagine GGG would hurt the game because they did a bunch of voice acting. Like,
I think they're completely
No.
capable. I think they're completely capable of dropping the mechanic if it's got a really bad reception.
Yeah.
But I think
they
it would
intended,
be like
yeah,
really bad.
yeah. Like they won't perfect. Okay, I don't believe that if GGG.
but we didn't like. Okay,
they-
spoilers again. The stories didn't progress in any way. It didn't progress. We know the name of the guy, the fucking General Vasectomy or whatever the fuck his name is, doing the thing. We know the name of the guy. That's it. We've known about the Templars. We've known about the Shaper. We've known about the High Templar. We've known about the Guardians. We've known all of this all along.
You could have a series that puts out a prequel and say the story didn't progress at all. It didn't. You're right. But we learned a bunch of backstory that's kind of maybe important.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it necessary for going forward for it to work.
Okay, spoilers are over. All right, we're back to.
Didn't need. Okay, no spoilers for Rogue One this time. we don't need to know like how how Rogue One like came about in the Star Wars to progress like the other things. Like we just don't. It doesn't matter. It's a little bit of extra tidbits. Sure, it's fun. I really enjoy it. I like the lore and PoE and all this sort of stuff. But like to say that it's that's the reason why it's gonna be like that. No, I just can't see it.
Fundamentally, if GGG thinks that it's bad for the game, fuck off. It's fundamentally, if they think it's bad, they won't make the game worse just because they spent money on it. But I think it's...
Really? Have you ever heard about Labyrinth? You really think so?
Ooh,
that is
spicy hot take right there.
spicy topic there.
Have you heard about Labyrinth, buddy?
There's one guy in suit size small is triggered. Yeah, he's in chat. He's triggered.
And one guy really likes Lab. I don't have a problem with Lab, just so we're clear. But a lot of people, I don't know. I think we could live without Lab.
Could you live without ascendancies though?
Personally,
I mean, we could live without a lot of things in PoE. I mean, there's a lot you could live with.
Yeah.
Actually, on that topic, can we move on to another spicy hot topic?
Go on then.
Because things that we could live without are map drops. I've not done a ton of endgame this league. As I said, I've only done a couple Shaper sets and got to Uber Elder, so my map pool is really thin on the ground, but that's like always the case the first few of those runs that I do. Nugi, you've done a ton more endgame mapping, right?
Yes.
How do you
Map
feel
drops
about the situation?
Dead. Maps do not drop. They're like, I don't know. Okay, let me explain what we were running. So we were running triple fragments, quad greedy sextants for only the best sextanted mobs, like lightning, physical fire, like all the stuff that actually drops maps. Beyond We had a very aggressive strategy in terms of like what rolled maps. We were like spending 10 chaos in terms of actually rolling the map. Like on average, we spent 10 chaos just rolling the map. So we had like a minimum of 25 or 27 pack size and 91 quant.
God
Or
dang.
like beyond, we were like really aggressive. We couldn't.
Yeah,
sustain.
that's really like
No,
that's
we
way
had
harder to hit than like
everything.
85 or
We
something.
were maintaining Elder Shaper influence as well, so we had to learn. Like we were trying to set up like fortresses. We did everything, and we could barely sustain. The highest we ever got was like 6 Elder maps, and then we broke all the way down to where we had 115 left.
In the assumed
Multiple
situation
times.
where this wasn't just a huge run of bad luck, which I guess is technically possible, why do you think GGG would make that change? Like, is it because we have all this auxiliary content? Did they expect the Memory Nexus to be a source of like maps for people? Because every map that you're running is theoretically giving you basically
Have you
another
guys
map
engaged
back.
with that too? Like, have
With
you
what?
guys done the Nexus or anything like that?
Well,
or
it's not
just
a
max
big
maps?
source of map. Like from what I've done of it, the monsters
They
in there
dropped
just
very
don't
few
drop
maps. It was just it felt
Well, it's
so
all tied
underwhelming
together,
map
though.
drops. We're trying to feed in like Delve as well. We're feeding Sis the Delve stuff, right? And he would go down and Delve and give us some extra maps. So we got a few maps from that. We ran a lot of the Elder, like Sana Elder maps as well on top to like sustain. I mean, we did trust me, we did a lot to try and sustain. It was really hard. I do think we could have done a little bit more, obviously. I mean, if you're going for like the min mapping strats and being speedy XP,
I mean,
it's really
just
tough.
to me, like half the time I'm in the Nexus, you know, like in this league.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? You're kind of not doing half the things that
No,
the
I
average player's
think
doing.
I think if you add in all the league mechanics on top, then you
Yeah.
could probably sustain.
If there's been a map drop nerf in maps, I think that would likely be the reason, because there's so many secondary sources of maps now. I think GGG have maybe again, this is purely hypothetical because
Beyond drops maps
like
as well now. I think that's a fact.
Beyond monsters do really.
Yeah, they changed that.
Well, the
Exiles
bossing,
drop
the
maps,
bosses, I believe.
Spirits drop maps.
Yeah.
Everything drops maps now. Anything that's like a unique mob, it all drops maps.
Oh, so just the Beyond bosses though, not like rares or
Yeah,
magic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Beyond?
So you
That's
need to
not
spawn a
super
lot of them.
impactful, then.
No,
Oh,
it's
they
alright.
drop a lot of maps.
The unique the unique bosses. Beyond,
They drop. Yeah, we got often from those. Definitely.
Run Beyond on your maps then, I guess, if you're running high
It's like
density.
way better than portals for sure. Like portals are trash now, for instance.
What you should have done clearly is had a Val Cycloner in your group to bring all of the mobs to one point, so you had more Beyond bosses, so then you would have had more map sustain.
You're kind of joking, but that sounds maybe legit. No, I think.
I mean, we're trying
next
to
question,
sustain
then.
Elder maps only, right? 16 is the highest tier, right? So there's a few people. Oh, Ayla is sustaining high tier. Ayla is not sustaining Elder maps. No.
What? Dog, we're
Just
running
saying.
like if you're like running 13s on SSF, you're fucking popping off. You're going crazy, and that's with Temple and Nexus and everything.
Yeah.
No. That's is to say that I don't know. I don't know if they did anything. I wouldn't be surprised either way. I think if there was a time to nerf the amount of maps dropping directly from maps, this is probably the time because they enabled all these different things. So it makes sense, but it doesn't make it good if it truly did happen. But at the same time, from my perspective, it's very difficult for me to judge like what truly is happening, because again, half of the time when I'm leveling, I'm not in maps. And if I'm not in maps, I'm not progressing the tiers of maps. So while previously I would be like level 80 in, I don't know, tier 6 maps, now I'm going to be level 90 in tier 6 maps because I'm doing all this other shit along the way. So it's hard for me to tell like if I'm really not dropping maps or am I getting just damn much more XP everywhere else and I'm running the same stuff. Like I was level 90 when my gems hit level 20. I've never had that happen. I was like 89 and a little bit. And I've never ever had that happen, which must have meant that I was running way more lower content, meaning not progressing through the tiers. Because in the past it would be like 90. It's like if I hit my gems on 92, I was like, oh shit, my maps are pretty bad. And now it's 90. That's such a big difference.
That could skew general perception a lot. Yeah. But if that were the reason why it seems that map drops have been reduced, then it wouldn't have held true through Nugi's example of doing like massively invested T16s and stuff and having difficulty sustaining those. If it's just a matter of perception because you're doing more before you get to that tier of the map.
That's hard for me to tell. I know Havoc was very vocal about that, and he's done. I don't know how much I think he's done a lot of like the Uber Elder map or Elder map stuff. I haven't done particularly much with that. So if it was truly like way noticeable for him, I think that's definitely something. Definitely say something for sure.
The next question I think then is like, in the hypothetical world where map drops have been adjusted, let's assume that to be true.
Yeah.
Which, you know, with a week into the league, we really can't know for certain, but it seems like maybe they might have been. Is that a good thing? And why would GGG have done it? I think GGG might have done it if they did, because there's been complaints the last few leagues that high-end content isn't rewarding enough. And one of the ways you can adjust it to make it more rewarding is to make it less available. So, you know, you adjust supply and demand. And this league in particular, if you look at T16s, I forget exactly the price, but last league there were like 17, 15 chaos around this time. They're like 27, 25 in softcore trade at least. And that's made endgame content more rewarding. When you drop the T16, it's worth more.
We were selling like T16 maps, like side maps, like Guardian map for 14C or for 40C.
Yeah.
40?
40.
No,
Yeah,
no joke.
yeah,
they were 30 a few days ago in trade softcore, which is where prices like drop the fastest. Man. I'm buying Guardian maps from Zana because she actually sells them at a good deal.
I was gonna call you. I was like, oh, what about the community mentality and blah blah blah. Like, no, fucking 40. What? No, this is not a community mentality problem. Holy,
I was selling. We were selling like constantly, like 13 to 15s, but like selling like hotcakes all the time.
And the knock-on effect of that is that Shaper drops and Uber Elder drops maintain their value longer into the league because fewer people can get to them and run them. Now, like, that is one way of making those things more valuable, which is something people have been vocal about. They want Shaper to be more worth farming.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the correct way to go about it. I honestly, in my opinion, I wouldn't mind having endgame maps be more accessible, but if GGG feels like they're too accessible, then they very well could have nerfed the rates.
I think nerfing the race is okay. I don't have any problem with that. Like the whole, like only running like one map and that's it, and we would never feel like there's any value in the highest tier of maps. So getting back to where we actually value the maps we get, I think is fine. I think one of the things that one of the worst things of running like the 100 here was how disjointed everything felt. With, oh, there's an Alva now. Oh, now there's a Syndicate. Oh, now we need to do the memory. And now we need to. There was constantly something you need to fix. Constantly something to need to run. It was very. There was never like you couldn't just say, okay, we're running maps.
Grind.
Yeah, and it was very difficult to increase map drops without and then just taking away some other rewards. That's what I would like to do. Just. I know Tarke made a video recently as well. Yeah, just to plug you. I mean, I've been with you on this boat for quite a while, right? I remember back then when we talked about it, I think we both agreed that this was a good idea. But this like you're constantly thinking, okay, we need to do the temple, we need to do the memory nexus, and we need to do the betrayals and the syndicate house, and then all of this combined is supposed to be our total map pool. It's just really, it's if you like to play a lot, it gets I don't know, it gets to be a bit much in the end.
It feels like work.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah,
you gotta think about it.
Yeah,
like that's a good thing. Like grinding things out, people don't really complain about that, but this, you really feel like there's this weight on you constantly.
Yeah. The one example of
you have to like think, oh, how do I build my temple? How do I build my nexus? How do I manage my betrayal? Like so they get all the red lines, and there's so many systems.
The only problem that I have with this is that it was fucking hard to progress through your red maps, you know? And this isn't a solution for that. Like if we were to assume that you engage with every single mechanic, yeah, you're going to be dropping maps, but you're not going to be progressing through your red maps better. Yeah. Therefore, like if you're an average, newer player or whatever, and you're engaging with that, it doesn't really fix your issue. It just deepens it. And we don't know like what GGG wants to do in terms of like how long it really takes you to get to a certain point, but this absolutely extends it, which might have been intended.
The other issue with using this as a method to increase the value of T16s and make it so that Shaper drops are more valuable and that sort of thing is that you're gating harder boss content behind those drops. And we have so much power in the game now that nothing before that's going to challenge your average like 5-linked build with one of the new skills with tons of base damage. So the player is going to run into a point where they feel like they're not being challenged at all, but moving forwards is difficult just because map drops aren't amazing. So I don't think it would be as big a problem if T10 maps were like as challenging as say T15s are now, and T15s were way more challenging, and T16s were a step above that. Like if they were to increase the difficulty of every tier of map as you move up, so it actually felt more significant moving up, then it wouldn't be as big a deal. But take a good skill like Soul Rend, Bane, Fire Trap, freaking Herald of Agony, doesn't matter. There's hundreds, maybe not hundreds, dozens of great skills. Then a 4 or 5 link can get up to yellow maps and red maps with no problem.
I shouldn't be able to kill Shaper start of league on a 5 link with GMP and links. That's basically a 4 link. I shouldn't be able to do Shaper on a 4 link. That's dumb.
That's like a 3.5 link.
Yeah.
If you're able to do that, you should be able to get there more easily because it's obviously not particularly challenging.
I didn't have any issue, but apparently everyone watching my stream said I had like the craziest RNG, like faster than anyone else they watched, because I got it like really easily. But the one question I do have, because we're assuming a lot, like this is all assuming that GGG intended to nerf the maps.
And that they got nerfed and...
Yeah, because we don't even know. But if they did actually intend to do it, would we still feel the same way if they made a post? Like, is the issue that it maybe got nerfed, or is the issue that it got maybe nerfed and we don't know? Like, if they made a dev post saying, going into 3.6, we're going to make higher tier maps less available for whatever reasons, obviously the community would really hard. But
yeah, what if they just released a statement and they're just like, yeah, you guys are stupid, we didn't do anything.
Like, yeah.
I'd be happy with that, to be honest, because it still is possible a weekend that it's, the people who've been in the spotlight, the people who've been racing, had really long runs of bad luck. It's pretty damn unlikely at this point, but I think it's possible.
No, if anything, it has to do with the way it progresses. Like everybody, it was very observable. In SSF, it's very clear when a certain player hits like shaped maps or a certain tier where your XP really starts going down, and you really feel it. Especially if you're competing, like it's very noticeable. Nothing like this happened this league. The whole time I felt stupid for complaining about map drops even on lower tiers, because every time I thought about, ooh, I'm level 92 or 95 and I'm running tier 9 maps, every time I thought, I'm like, but my build isn't better than the other person's and he's getting the same exact amount of XP, so his shit can't be better either. And there was nobody who stood out. Not a single person stood out. It was like across the board, all the same thing. So I mean, that could be a constant coincidence too. But
yeah,
I have
across multiple leagues, especially with prices being what they are, because that's an influence of like the whole player base that participates in the economy is going to cause the price to fluctuate up or down.
So I don't think it takes a lot. So they could actually come out and say, we actually haven't changed map drops at all. But there is a lot of system changes, both to Delve and Betrayal. And even there's the prophecy, the box prophecy. What's that called?
Monstrous Treasure.
Yeah.
Or Bountiful Treasure.
I'm pretty sure that Monstrous Treasure in the past would spawn all the sextant mobs as well in the maps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't anymore.
Really?
Yeah, they're not there.
That's... you don't get extra monsters when you open the boxes or anything. You're just deleting your sextant monsters.
You're just deleting your sextants. So it's like, we're like, okay, we're going to do this to sustain better. I was like, wait, this is not actually helping us at all. It helped like a little bit. It made it a little bit better, but it was like it was so inefficient. Like the amount of time we had to use to do it, like just run more maps instead. Yeah. So we scrapped it. Damn. So I think they've done, and delving, right? Sis was going down and he found like 10 city nodes, got like one map. Right, so I think that they might have nerfed like a lot of the systems.
Cities are popping.
I've had loads of maps from City. It's completely...
We could have just had bad RNG on that.
Yeah.
I think that could just have been on our part.
Because I think this is a big part of what carried me early, is that I got it was like just when I first got into reds, I got a city, and that got me like 4 more reds. So that was like, oh, I've got a base now. And then once I was in that, I then started getting the Zanas, and that's when I started getting the jumpy jumps. And then the second I got into the tier 16, it was like I got another one. But what was really funny, just based on what Raiz said, when I logged off on my like second day, and I was doing like 12-hour streams, I always host Uber because he's like a couple of hours behind me. So I host Uber, and he's looking like this. And he's like, how's the league going? I'm like, great, man, I'm just in reds. How's the league going for you? I'm in tier 4 maps. And I'm like...
No.
And I'm like, wait, so if you've not done your like yellows yet? He's like, I haven't got any yellows. And I'm like... He was like on suicide watch so badly. Anyone who watched Uber at start of league, it was hilarious. It was so good.
I have a solution.
Go on.
We can all just become Uber lab farmers and not worry about map drops ever. There you go.
Because the thing is as well, like the league mechanic we've gotten right now, I think the perception or the feedback I've heard at least is that they're not good map drops, right? I haven't heard anyone saying that Synthesis is good for map drops.
No.
And
The league
but
mechanic
Betrayal
is not
was
great
good for map drops, right? Even just like executing the dudes, they dropped a lot of maps. So I think we've had a lot of leagues as well, like going backwards, where we just got a lot of maps. So now if we have then a league with like there's nothing, then okay. That might actually be one of the biggest issues. But like that's why I'm not certain that they actually nerf the actual drop rate of maps. It's just that we don't actually have a league mechanic for it.
We had the same thing in Bestiary, because we went from like Harby, League Stones, Abyss, like constant loot explosions. And then when Bestiary first came out, there was nothing. And it wasn't until like a month in that they then made the rares like do massive loot explosions. And then it was like, oh, it's all okay again, you know.
I mean, the cities are like the redeemer, honestly, in Delve, because I feel like I've seen that with a lot of people. Like you hit a city and it's just freaking crazy.
Okay.
It is so insane in comparison to everything else. But I mean, the synthesis can be all right too. I've been doing some combinations of like modifiers and then going into like amplifiers that have 40% pack size. And yeah, maybe I'll drop like 3-4 red maps.
Okay.
It's pretty okay, but to set that up, it's pretty gruesome. It's a lot of work. Still a necessity on SSF, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think GGG might have been afraid of the amount of value that the memory map allows you to generate, because every memory you get is like 2 or 3 charges, so it's almost a full map in its own right in terms of
Yeah, I know they're huge.
So in the end, they ended up maybe over nerfing the drops from them to compensate for that.
I wonder if they were trying to balance it or nerf it, though. That's the. I'm sure we're gonna.
Well, I mean, nerfing is just a balancing tool.
Quiet. Yeah, but they've been very quiet, right? Like they haven't really. Not that I've seen. They've said anything.
They've done a few posts. They haven't. When was the last big post? Because we had like 2 posts quite close to each other, and then we haven't had anything for a while. How long ago was that actually? Because I always feel like it always feels much longer than it is, but we're only genuinely a week into the league. It feels like the league's gone on for way longer than that, so I don't know how long it actually was.
Really? It's the opposite. I feel like the league started yesterday for me. Holy shit. I have no idea what my name is anymore. Wow, a week? Fucking hell. It's crazy. No, I don't think they've posted anything. Not anyway addressing a lot of the feedback that I know of.
I don't think they've said anything which is like in response to like the complaints. I think they basically just had like they had that post saying these are things that we're trying to work on, these are things that we know are bugs that we're trying to fix, and I think that was kind of like the last thing. One thing because we kind of like jumped straight into it. One thing I did want to cover, and it's a really lame like almost like hello classroom activity. If everyone could name one thing they like, one thing they hate, and one thing they think could nearly be there about the league mechanic. Just because I'm curious if you all like or dislike the same things. So while you think, for me personally, I really like the mapping side of things, and I like the planning. I really dislike how you feel like you've been cheated, and there's no fail-safe protection. It's like if you have a disconnect or you get a failed run, you brick everything. That I hate. And then the thing which I think could be there, if they made it rewarding, which I don't think it is currently, if they made it rewarding enough for the Memory Nexus, I feel like all the work would feel worthwhile. You know? It's just currently it doesn't feel worthwhile because the reward isn't there. It's like if you had to do all this busy work, but then you clicked it, you got like, crazy items or a bunch of scarabs. You'd be like, oh, that was worth because I got the scarabs. But now we don't have that, so it's just like.
I guess for me, what could be better and what I like are kind of the two same things, because it's the way you engage with the pieces and maps. Because I really think that they did a great job with the decay, but it just sometimes does not fucking work at all. But if I think back to like Incursion, where it was just undoable, or it was just not a factor at all, and here you feel like you have a lot more control over it. Yeah, you get screwed over every now and then, which is the disappointing part and what I think could be better. But when it does work, and you're making those jumps and you're flame dashing across and all this stuff, and you feel like you're actually making a difference, that feels very freaking rewarding. So I like that a lot. And yeah, the thing that I hate is how just unintuitive it is. I actually really like the crafting system too. I'll say that much. If it can be, the intuitive works into itself into the crafting system, but I love the crafting system, and I think they did a very good job with choosing it to be all affixes and not the fractured ones. I just wish it wasn't so confusing. I guess that's two things. Sorry, Tarke.
Oh, that's fine. God, who's next?
I agree with actually running the memory stuff. It's really fun. Like actually playing the memory stuff is really fun. So I think they did a really good job with that. I think the lack of agency inside the memory nexus really gets to me. Like how little control I have over like constructing my thing, where there's all these holes popping up and all the like how many times I have to like rerun or like trying to like just the fixing of it that I don't have.
Yeah, and then you disconnect and you fucking want to disconnect in real life because holy shit, redoing that is.
Because the thing is, I think if you have more agency of actually running the area, right, you can construct it in an easier way. You don't need to increase the rewards, because then just being able to construct a better one increases the rewards. So I think fixing gameplay like issues within the actual Nexus will actually increase like everything. It'll like just cascade out and make everything better. So instead of trying to like give us more things per node, just make the things easier to access and get around and not feel like you're constantly like having to like micromanage everything.
Yeah, I mean, Nugi kind of hit the nail on the head with the thing that I dislike there as well. So I'm just going to be parroting what he said, that I feel like the system could really use a lot more agency. It's a good word. As far as what I like, I really enjoy the crafting system, and I think it's got a lot of potential for making some absolutely crazy items. I understand that it's like obtuse and difficult to approach. I don't see how you thin that down without losing some of the depth and complexity of it. I think it could be more well communicated though, and I think they could also do more of a good job of pushing a player towards exploring it. So I really like that thing we touched on, maybe an hour ago at the start of the podcast, of having Kvass sort of encourage you to use the device and say, here's a fractured item with this mod on it. Go combine it with some other stuff, see what happens. And then, after you do that, there's another step in the quest that Kvass is like, oh, well, you figured out how to do this. This is how you do the next thing. And like actually have the game encourage you to use this system rather than just have it sit there and go click on it if you feel bored. Yeah, I think that's also probably the thing that could use some touching up. Then let's go with that, since you wanted one of those as well. They could incorporate the crafting more thoroughly into the rest of the mechanic, because right now it just feels like it's a little bit of a layer on top, some sprinkles on top of the mechanic that you don't need them. You can do it with or without.
One thing that we haven't touched on at all that I know a lot of people kind of feel quite strongly about, what do you feel about the fact that it definitely does push a gotta go fast playstyle? Like, you can't play a super slow build this league, because it's the whole aspect, it's timed, you have to be able to teleport,
I might catch some flack for this, but in my opinion, clear speed is a vector by which a build can be judged. And I don't think that it's the only one. I don't think every build needs to be as fast as humanly possible. But I think whether or not you can clear at a decent pace is something that your build can be judged by. And GGG implements mechanics that are sort of like, checks, I guess, for these various things. Like there's tankiness checks in boss fights, there's DPS checks in boss fights, and then there's also clear checks. And you can argue whether or not the current one is too extreme. I think maybe they could slow down the speed of decay on some of them. It just feels really inconsistent, basically. But I don't think that that's a bad kind of mechanic. I think in a game like Path of Exile, in an ARPG, clear speed is an attribute to a build that the game has full license to check you for.
It makes you angry in a good way. Like when I see a breach and it's just not throwing up any mobs, I'm just like, fuck, this is just sad. But like when I make a mistake, or if it just shuts down a very uncontrolled way and it just kicks me out, I get that quick like little fuck. But then I move on, and 10 seconds later I do another one, and this one's successful.
You see,
It's
that feels great when mapping. It feels horrible when you're in the Nexus, though.
Yeah, because you lose your chain, extra investment.
Yeah, Nexus really, that part really sucks ass. That one's not good, for sure. I do, however, agree with Octavian that we're a bunch of elitist pricks, but honestly, it's fucking hard to fuck up a build nowadays in Path of Exile to the point of it being incapable to complete any content in that way.
And I'm not saying
know.
you shouldn't try and make your meme build that is just full on block, doesn't move barely fast at all, and stands there and face tanks everything and slowly whittles away. But you shouldn't expect that highly specialized build to be able to do all the content in the game necessarily. Like that would be really good for sitting in front of Minotaur and walking away and making some nice hot soup while you wait for Minotaur to die. But it's not going to be very good for clearing memory fragments. That's sort of fine, in my opinion.
There's a big.
I think those builds are cool.
How fast do you really need to go? It's not like you can be like a moderately fast character and you're doing fine.
Yeah, no.
Well, the thing is, there's a big
make it more
difference,
consistent. I think that's my biggest issue with it.
Yeah,
there's a big difference if you
sometimes
can't
it's
do
super
it.
fast.
Sorry, there's a big difference if you can't do it with a freeze mine build, and that's clearly a problem with the game. But then if you can't do it with a fireball build, then that's clearly a problem with whatever you're doing. So gotta make some adjustments, More third-party websites for you. Goddamn, what can you do?
God.
I mean, you'll encounter the occasional. This actually I was a little bit too slow here, but I don't think this particular one requires you to have that much clear speed, right? I mean, if you just kind of jog along around the edge and you click and click.
It's hard to tell because it starts despawning from a side. That's what I've noticed, right? That it picks a side, it starts despawning, and sometimes it starts despawning right on top of you, and that's usually the one that really pisses you off. But then
But that's also the one that when you get the flame dash and you
it.
make it, you feel like a fucking badass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It does. I think
an incursion you would just fail and that's it, and you would do it every time and you were fucked, and that really sucked.
I think this league has had more fuck yeah I'm cool moments than any other league, because there's been a few when it's closing around you and you chain 3 flame dashes on you get little pocket islands where it hasn't fully evolved. So it's you dash to one island, then you dash, and then when you get up the island, stream, you saw that. I'm just gonna click that real quick. And then but other times you do it and you fail instantly, you're oh fuck this, whatever. But when you get it, you feel
forget about it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about them just making it so there's a little icon telling you where the memory stabilizers are and then you don't guess the wrong direction, but they could even maybe speed up the rate of decay if they really need to balance that. So you're still fighting against the decay at the same rate, but you don't just get screwed because you happen to flame dash the wrong way once.
Maybe have I don't know, maybe you can't really do that now, but little voice it's coming in from the left.
To be fair, that would feel really bad when you got the cells layout, because you're I'm going top right, and it just takes you into a wall, and you're oh, thanks for the arrows, GGG.
I like the little exploration again. That's more what we talked about, what I mentioned before, where maybe they didn't intend for you to run every single one. Maybe this is part of it, where you're intended to fail some of them, and it's gonna
It's
get
okay.
frustrating. You're gonna
Yeah.
have to. It's gonna be okay. Like that's the thing. Like you don't dwell on it. That's the nice part. On a breach, I feel like I
sure.
dwell on those things, but on this, I just, 10 seconds, you're over it. Yeah, let's go. But day one, it was really fucking frustrating. Every time it covered me, I was just like, God damn it, this shit sucks.
Then you figured it out, right? How to like deal with it. You got a little
Uh,
faster.
Sometimes. Sometimes I run into a place, I turn around, and it's already like covered up right at the entrance. I'm just like, what am I supposed to do here?
That's the other thing, is that we're still week one, so a lot of builds are still extremely rough and aren't going to be clearing as quickly as they can. So this content may very well have been balanced around, mid-league levels of clear speed for most of the player base, rather
That's
than week
true.
one levels of clear speed.
Yeah, my build was only ranked 2, so it wasn't that fast. That's true.
Since we've touched on builds a little bit though, how have we felt about the whole like hand casting rework and like the new skill tree and all of that kind of stuff?
It's great.
I like it.
Yeah, they did a really good job across the board. There's tons of skills that I'm excited about trying now and builds that I want to make and stuff. And I've been playing some Ice Trap because it's actually a real skill now. It's wonderful.
What are you playing?
Ice Trap.
Oh yeah, I saw mods play that too. It's the single target, like really just.
I've only just gotten to Blood Aqueducts with it, but it's felt fine throughout the whole chunk and everything. And Stormburst was what I, completed my Atlas with, and the new Stormburst feels really freaking good too. It's, as I said at the start of the podcast, it's one of the most interesting skills they've released in a long time. Like it's got really sort of unique behavior in the way that you want to like scale duration to certain breakpoints in order to get the most efficiency out of it.
It's like it's the Firestorm I always wanted, where you can like move it around and everything. Because I played Firestorm for like 5 leagues straight, just trying to make it good, and it just never became what I wanted it to be. Because it had all these like scale with duration and AOE. It's just scale with everything, but it just kind of always just wasn't good.
I hear good things about Unleash Firestorm.
Oh yeah, that's true.
A lot of people playing Whispering Ice as well. Yeah.
I ended up not doing it because they announced the whole thing with the how Unleash has cast speed and stuff. I'm like, well, can't afford the 0.5% less clear speed. Sorry.
Unleash feels okay if you play it on high cast speed characters. If you've got no cast speed, it's really noticeable. Like your character locks up really badly. But if you have enough cast speed, it's just kind of like a slight extra jitter, and you move fine with it. I've only played Tricksters this league, so I've just been like going full cast speed. So it's like,
It's a good league for it.
Yeah.
No, I think they definitely did a better job. Like it was a roller coaster of emotions for me, because
really
they announced the balance and it was like, wow, this is everything I've ever wanted. And then they released the patch notes and I'm like, ooh, this is like 30% amazing, 50% I really don't care, and 20% terrible. But like now that we're getting into it, it's like, oh wow, there's so many just good things about this that I don't even care about that 20%. So it was pretty good. I don't know how much this impacts. Like, how do you guys really feel like this impacts heavily like mine and trap builds? Are those
there's a few interesting mine and trappers. Fireball mines with fork, Wave of Conviction mines is apparently a thing, because they have a minimum duration. So if you get a lot of duration and AoE scaling and stuff, they'll still go a decent distance.
Wait, can you have multiple then?
Yeah, because the wave has a minimum duration before it vanishes of I think 0.2 seconds. So if you get enough AoE that it travels quickly and enough like duration scaling, it'll. I haven't like looked at a path building for it yet. I've seen some clips. There's Balor Mage. I think his team was doing Uber Elder with it, and it looked really good damage, like GC mines, old GC mines level of damage.
I heard that it works really well when traveling through doorways too. I hope they do a lot of that stuff for freeze pulse and whatnot.
Oh really?
It actually becomes,
how does it work?
It goes through.
The bit of it that doesn't get cut off by the doorway keeps traveling.
Oh, and then spreads out when it comes out on the other end, or what? Just keeps like.
I'm not sure about that.
I don't
You
know.
don't like a sound. You don't like a
That'd
sound
be
wave.
crazy.
I don't think it grows again, but I'm not sure. I haven't tested it.
Listen,
mean-
as long as it doesn't run into the wall and instantly cancels itself out, even though you're not standing anywhere near the doorway, like it's good enough for me. Okay.
Talking about doorways and stuff, Soulrend is like perfect.
Really?
Oh god, the auto targeting.
Tell me about it.
If you're in like a cells kind of layout,
Mhm.
you can shoot the Soulrend, and it's actually really smart. It will like go through all the doors and clear it all out. It's like when they made Winter Orb, and people were like, wait, I can just walk through it and it's clean. That seeks out on Chimera, when you're on the like ad phase, if you stand on the back wall, I can cast, and with GMP it will naturally spread to all of the gates. So I just stand at the back wall and just hold down right click, and it's like, it's so good. And it's like, it's really intelligent. And even if you're on a really linear map, like let's say you're doing like sewer, it clears like 2.5 screens away. So even with like GMP without gem swapping, 2 projectiles will like snake down the whole path and like clear like 2 screens. It's so good. So good.
Yeah, Bane's felt pretty good too. How does Soulrend deal with like Beyond and all this sort of stuff? Isn't it frustrating when respawning mobs?
Not really, because I have quite high duration, and the way that I play it is like run really fast and just like shoot in front of me, and then it's kind of like playing Ignite Prolif. Like by the time I've run through it, the pack's dead. So if there's any Beyond, it'll just pop up in front of me, so I just press again, and then I just keep on going. So I'm only casting like once every like 3 or 4 packs. Isn't the duration less like a second? Yeah, but you get increased duration from Trickster, you get increased duration from the Aura, then you get like increased duration from Efficacy. You can make it last kind of like 0.8 seconds or so, and it travels quite far. So it's just like, yeah, it's pretty good. And then for single target, I'm using it with Essence Drain alongside it, because you basically just want to hold down Storm single target. So I just throw an Essence Drain in every now and again, and it's like completely fine.
Damn. Now I really want to play Firestorm Unleashed. God damn it. Still have 2 more levels to go. It's gonna take me a week.
Also, I gotta say, man, wands are back in business.
I've only been using wands this week.
Yeah.
Same.
That's been really nice to feel like you actually had an option in how you build your weaponry for a caster. That's been like gone for a long time. So that's been like that's something I've really enjoyed.
For sure. Running stuff in general.
Yeah.
Oof.
One thing quickly, since you mentioned the dual wield cluster, I've made a couple of videos, but people still don't seem to be using it enough. The cooldown recovery and the attack and cast speed on move speed is global, so you can use that on any ability. So if you're anywhere near that cluster, if you're using a shield, a staff, a bow, whatever, just take it. It's so good.
People were thinking, like, when I was trying to tell people to use it with a shield, people thought that I was trolling them. I'm like, no, please believe me. Like this.
It's Minion Nodes 2.0. I have a path of building for like a CI trickster using a shield with the shield nodes. Like, Tarke, you have the shield and the dual wield nodes. It's like, yeah, I know, I explained it in the video. No! It's like, oh.
Yeah, so I think they did a good job. I really wonder how like the totem players especially are feeling about all the stuff this league.
They killed my totem build that I was gonna play.
Really?
What are you gonna play?
I was they did it was right for them to kill it. I was gonna play discharge totems as my league starter, and discharge previously would deal damage based on the charges you have without expending them. So you could just perma discharge after generating your charges once and not have to continue to generate them, which is broken. So they removed it for a good reason. You can no longer support discharge with spell totem. It is completely gone from the game, entirely gone.
A little bit of a band-aid there.
Yeah. I mean, they were buffing discharge too, and with like endgame gear on, Path of Buildings for discharge totems from last league would reach like 20 million shaper DPS easy, and they were buffing discharge. So, yeah, it makes sense that they got rid of it.
Just shoot it in the head, like not even anything. Yeah, I mean, I get that. How's Arc? Anybody knows how's? I know that people are saying that it's pretty bad from what I've heard. But I
I've
don't
heard that it's just
understand
more
how
crap
it
to
could
play
be.
with. I
What's
mean,
that?
they
What?
have the radius at which it jumps to other packs.
Yeah.
Like they have its chaining radius. It just feels much worse to
You
clear
have to
with.
cast a lot more to like clear the packs, I would assume.
Hmm.
Because like it shoots in the in a general direction, right? But it doesn't cover the screen, so if something's behind you, you have to turn around and shoot that way now. Instead of it just jumping all the way around.
I see.
It's probably one of those things that if you never played it before, it probably still feels alright. But if you played it before, it's just gonna feel so much worse. It's like if you played like Cyclone with AoE and then you play it without, you're like, this is dog shit, you know.
It's like when they changed AoE
Yeah.
with Earthquake and stuff like that. Oh my god. I was playing Earthquake and everybody was telling me to stop. Because it's like, it used to be so much better. I'm just like, guys, but it's still okay right now. It's like, no. It was so much better before. Stop it. Who's laughing now? Earthquake is popping. Not.
My friend Kane, he's played Vol Double Strike this league, and he's had a hard time trying to tell people that it's actually still okay. But oh god, I don't think I mentioned this. I mentioned this in the pre-stream. Did I talk about the questionable bug that's happening with memory frags and maps?
No.
No.
I think you only mentioned it in the pre-stream.
Okay, he managed to. He didn't do this on purpose, and a few people have mentioned this on Reddit and
Who
stuff.
are we witch hunting?
This is my friend Kane, washed up racer.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah. He's managed to bug his memory frags so that he only gets the beach layout spawn.
What?
Yeah, there's a few people have had this on Reddit. There's a weird thing where if you don't engage with Kvass, you know how some people said they couldn't use the Nexus at all?
Mm-hmm.
Some people get completely locked out of the mechanic. Other people
Okay.
have it so they only get one memory frag spawn.
Wait a minute.
So what some people are doing, not intentionally, completely by accident, is they only get the really nice open layout, and they can't do anything with the Nexus, so they're like, well, I'll just have this really nice layout in every map that I run them. So if there were any, like, racers in this podcast, which thankfully there aren't any, because they wouldn't take advantage of this sort of thing. No. They could potentially get some sick XP by just getting these, like, basically, like, really nice, like, extra sex and stuff going on. And I have no idea how the fuck they fix that. Because it's like a weird bug to do with talking and not talking, and it's like a weird thing to replicate, and apparently some people know how it works and some people don't. But, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I just thought I'd slide
random
that in.
occurrence that you happen to do over and over. I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's all right.
Flare farming 2.0, boys.
How
I'll
they
do
didn't
what it-
communicate at all before the league started that flare farming was getting like buried, right? There wasn't anything in any patch notes that I missed somewhere.
No. Listen, I might have sent Chris a thing, and it was long and it was ugly, and he responded with what he usually responds whenever I suggest something. He responded with, "Okay, I'll look into it." I think he looked into it, but yeah, I wish they communicated that and they did something like more reasonable. I mean, I think it's good. I think everybody's happy, but I think a lot of people also got pissed off that they didn't communicate anything. It's a pretty big change. I mean, it's a pretty big change, especially since maybe they didn't want to communicate it because it affected
Cities and stuff.
like whole areas, and they
Yeah.
couldn't fix it immediately. So they were just kind of like, shh, don't talk about it. They're not gonna get to maps anyway, and then they fixed it as soon as they could. I don't know, but yeah, no, they didn't do anything.
I feel like we've spoken about most things. Is there anything you guys want to chat about before we talk about like ExileCon stuff and kind of like wrap up? I know we could spend another 3 hours complaining about Memory Nexus, but
Please
I
list
think we,
block recovery boots. Please do that. Also, just a quick few things. Bow with plus gems locked in, high level ES bases with like a good fractured mod locked in. Keep an eye out for those things. They're probably worth money.
Also, just I think good bases in general, like because you could essentially just like scour Regal and go for the second mod on the good base.
Mm-hmm. Though
I mean,
it is harder to target it that way.
Yeah. But I mean, you could, let's say, this is something I just like thought on the fly. Like, let's say you just pick up a good base. You just like scour wriggle until you get anything good, especially on like armor and stuff. Like, you get any resist, any life, any whatever. You just keep that and you put in your trade if you hit a T1 roll. You don't specifically go for the one. You just pick up the good bases and you scour wriggle a few times. If annuls get like really expensive, this could be a way to like maybe get
Circumvent
some
it
like
for sure.
yeah.
No, I think in
You could
general
have, like,
people should
any
really
roll,
look
any
into
terrible
it.
roll, and you would just have the secondary, and you would like you have them like the chance to get it.
The thing that's cool about this system is that it isn't like bestiary. It's too much like bestiary in the wrong aspects, but fortunately it's also not like bestiary in the good ones, where in bestiary you would take forever to find anything even remotely useful that you would recognize. But in this system, it feels like most of the things that you find, you can get at least a little bit of value out of it in some way. It's just as most people don't take the effort. So it could be like it's an own entire market, but yeah, whether or not we're actually going to get there and whether or not people are going to care is that's a whole nother story. I think.
The last one that I forgot: proj speed on quivers and bows. That corresponds to additional arrow implicit. That was pretty good.
That's nice.
Yeah, in general, think about it, because for me that was exactly the case where I was playing a chaos build with a wand. Chaos builds struggle if you don't benefit from spell damage. Chaos builds struggle a lot with itemization because you have a lot of like uniques that are really weird because they're not strong, and you can get a lot of multipliers. But like for instance, you can get a dagger. You can use a dagger, but then you've got the wrong implicit.
Yeah.
And it also can't get cast speed, and it also can't get like multiplier. Oh, and daggers are especially funny too. I guess it's a good example. Daggers, there is no dagger that is faster than a scepter. Scepters are as fast as daggers, but then if you want to use a scepter for chaos builds, you also cannot roll the multiplier the same way you can't on daggers, even though both of them, like daggers are poison and everything. Like there's all these weird different things. So I ended up using a wand, and what was especially useful for me was the chaos multiplier implicit, and it's something very simple to get, and it will immediately improve your build. And I think everybody should look into not even just necessarily those really really big ones like Octavian was mentioning with a +1 arrow or something big on your boots, but just basic items with basic implicits, just your weapon. It will make a pretty big difference, because I went from probably using a sword to now using a wand, and that's, I think, really cool.
Briefly on that, can I just say, fuck whoever came up with non-ailment chaos damage over time multiplier. As someone who's made multiple soul rend videos, the amount of times I've had to say that fucking sentence is ridiculous.
I just say chaos damage multiplier.
But it's not, like, if I say that, Carve will say, but Tarke, it doesn't scale this, that. So I always have to say it in full because it confuses people. And it's so long. Like, you need to take a pause for breath.
People less if you say the full thing?
Just start out your video, but like just I have a little explanation, right? Or you make the abbreviation, and you make it easy for yourself.
Ah, yes, like
No, why not? I mean, if it's that annoying,
yeah.
make it easy for yourself. Try doing it now.
I like how Carv says that's not fair. That's like the fairest sentence I've heard ever from anybody ever. I can't even remember. Just the other day I said something, and it was like literally a 0.001% exception, and Carv was in my chat, and of course he was the only one to point it out. Like totally, absolutely fair, Carv. Wake up. Also, one last thing, I guess, if we're actually switching topics and finishing up, what do you guys think about Delph? If we, like, with the changes that they did with the fossil spawns and everything, went through some pretty major stuffs. From what I understand, the fossils are pretty expensive also in Trade League. You guys think it's good?
Feels good for me.
I think they did a very good job with shortening the scaling and getting people into more relevant levels of content more quickly. Because like Nico digs down and stops at like depth 35 or something, but depth 35 is like monster level, close to maps, 67, 68.
Okay.
So you get into, I think I'm at monster level 81 right now, and that's depth like 180 or 170. But between that and like T10 maps is a much larger space, or maybe T7 or 8 maps, than it is between like T1 to T5 level. Like it's really strange. It's not consistent in how quickly the eye level goes up, it seems. You go up much faster until you hit like yellows, and then it starts to slow a bit, and then you get to red maps. At least in terms of eye level. As far as the fossils go, I'm not super well educated on their drop rates because I've not been farming for them. I've just been pushing with what limited fuel I get. Possibly because of map drop rate changes, if those are changed, or possibly just because more people caught on. Sulfite scarabs have been way more expensive at the start of this league than they were at the start of last one, as well as that Syndicate is way less.
Just Syndicate.
That's probably a much bigger deal
thing,
as well.
yeah.
So sulfite scarabs are like, what, 40, 50 chaos? I'm gonna go look.
Scarabs in general are just really expensive.
That
I mean, we could like, get the mad scarab like once every like 2-3 hours. We could get like one scarab. That was it.
And how much are you paying for those? Sorry.
25, 30.
That makes my quarry thing. Oh god, that makes it really profitable because obviously I haven't been checking the trade league prices. I've just been like stashing them. I've gotten like 12 scarabs this morning, just like casually doing like an hour or two on a really not. Oh, that's depressing. I want them to work out.
And Alva, and you're getting temples.
I haven't actually been doing. I was skipping Alva because it was this. Yeah, okay. So this sounds dumb, but this is actually what Nugiyen was talking about earlier. When I'm just trying to Syndicate, I want to just get it over with. So I'm trying to just Syndicate. So anytime I spend doing Alva means I'm having to take longer between each Jun. So I've been choosing to skip it, and I've been skipping the fragments as well. I've been just, like, check the corners. The only exception is I've been killing the essence mobs, obviously, and I've been doing the side zones because sack frags are really good in an SSF environment. That's the only thing I've been, like, going out of my way to run.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that from like a mentality standpoint, if that's your preference.
It's probably
just talking about the pure
inefficient.
value of it.
It's probably
like,
completely inefficient, but
I don't know how much a corruption table goes for. It's going to be at least like what, 25, 35 chaos or something like that in a trade league. Early on, it's probably going to be less expensive than even later in the league when people actually have things they want to double corrupt.
Again, it's a very different economy there because like I'm in a private league with a bunch of viewers, so it's like, oh, should we throw a tabular in? It's like,
I wonder if GGG is going for something like that, where you've got the Atlas and it's like this overarching thing, but maps are the filler. And everything else is the content. I think that would suck, but I wonder if we're eventually gonna get to that point. It's like, you're doing maps not to progress. You're doing maps to kind of fill your time in between all the other shit that you're looking to do. It's getting there. I feel like I'm definitely doing something that isn't a map 50 or more % of the time nowadays.
I think in SSF, I completely agree. If you want to be like efficient, yeah.
I don't know, but like
in trade league, I don't think it's that case. Like there's so much profit you get from like well, if you look at the MFers at least, like mapping, it's just like it spits out so much crap.
It's still the thing you can invest the most into.
Yeah.
To get your rewards back.
Yeah. What's like MP up to now? Like 12 mirrors or something? I mean, he's probably
14, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, they're just mapping, right?
I had a guy raging at me in the chat, telling me how MPs are ruining the economy in Path of Exile.
Oh, no.
Dog, come on, man.
Ban him for playing.
Yeah.
I will
never
forgive him. Do you remember when he was in a group in Delve League? Oof, that bastard. How dare he?
Yep. ExileCon?
ExileCon.
Yeah, let's go.
So, who's going to ExileCon then?
Me.
I am.
I have a ticket. I'm working on the plane.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anyone in chat got a plane? Work it out real quick.
Got a spare one? You know, maybe a Cessna or something. I'm not picky.
Were you guys yelling at me that I thought that it's gonna take 2 hours to sell out and everybody was like 10 minutes?
No, it was Chris Wilson actually who thought that it wasn't going to sell out very
Yeah.
quickly. Like they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't.
He was
predict it.
really underselling their ticket numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are they sold out now?
There's 220 left on the regular ones.
Right now?
Yeah.
Damn.
And everything, like the VIP stuff is sold out. That went pretty fast. The Ultra one went in like a few seconds.
The Super VIP, because we were watching it on stream as soon as it went up, we were like, ooh, refresh. Ooh, 2 left, refresh. Ooh, they're gone. They Super VIP sold in like 2 minutes tops. It was like they're all gone.
So if you guys need one, I got 6 of them.
I think it's really good though, because they had the little like writing somewhere that if you bought a ticket, the exclusive MTX had to be collected in person. Because I think if that wasn't there, if it was just given to like the account, I think they would have sold out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they
Yeah,
didn't
we
even
got-
say what it is, right?
Yeah, we don't know what it is. It could be like some rinky-dink little recolor, like, and your ExileCon exclusive is a brown freeze pulse MTX. You're like, woohoo!
Yeah, but wait,
Even if that's the
even if they-
case, like the exclusiveness of it, that's gonna drive people to want it. Like if you look at some other games in League, for example, there's a black Alistair skin, which literally just takes a cow champion and makes him black instead of purple, whatever color he is. And it's like it's only from the beta, you can't get it anymore, and I'm sure an account with that would sell in the thousands. So,
How many regular tickets did they start out with? And they have like a second round, right? Of like there's like 5 more big VIPs coming. I don't know if like the other VIPs coming probably.
It was 1,000 if I remember correctly. It was 1,000.
Oh, 1,200, 1,500, no?
No, I don't think they didn't put 1,500 up all at once. I think they put, if I remember correctly, they put 1,000 up, and then it was like 250 VIPs, and then it was 10 super VIPs.
Yeah.
Really?
Seems about right in my head.
I think so.
That blows my mind that they didn't sell it yet. Then I thought they already sold over 1,000 for sure.
I mean, it's probably
There's 15
in
ultra
hindsight,
VIP,
I mean,
but they've still got 5 left. Sorry,
yeah.
chat.
I mean,
It's like
it does
6
it does
months
take
already.
like what 2K, like 2K just for flights for most people to get there.
You also need to remember that like most of the player base is centered in both either EU or NA, which are really expensive. It's like if the majority of the player base was in like South Asia or something, then it's not that big of a deal trip-wise to fly over, so there would have been way more people, you know.
Yeah, I mean, even I don't know. I would assume that even New Zealand and Australia would have just covered it, but I suppose not. Then again, it's really far away still, right? So if they're having a second round, I think some people are still going to consider it. But the fact that they're not sold by now, a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I agree.
Guess Chris knows his shit better than we do.
Yeah.
Whoa,
Smart dude.
Not sure I'll
Who
go
would
that
have
far.
I mean, they were going quite fast though. I will say on like the first day.
It makes me wonder like how many people buy the big boy we've never had numbers on how many people buy the top supporter packs, have we?
I think
Not
we
that I
had
can recall.
maybe not like action. I don't know. I felt like there was some
Numbers are
info at
never-
some point where they had because they sent they sent out the list to all the people, like they send out like the monthly letter to the big boy supporters. So I'm not sure if we ever had the number.
It's just
I mean, I was shocked. I was watching, I think, an interview with Jonathan from around closed beta and PoE, and they were like, "Oh yeah, our supporters are super generous. We've already made around $400,000 in the last 2 weeks." And I'm just like, "What? In the closed beta? Like, holy shit!"
They had a lot of support, like big support.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about some of the people who've got like 5 unique supporter packs and stuff.
What do you think about the people holding off for the second round before they commit to a regular ticket?
I
What if there's
I think that's a bit of a weird one, that, and also we don't know if you can like upgrade your tickets, do we, or anything?
I don't know.
Because it's like if I was in the point of view if I had the money, right? Because this is the thing, if you have the money to go to New Zealand, you can probably afford the extra like bit, right? So it's like if I had like
What was the hand movement? What is
whatever,
that?
that's the
Extra
money,
bit?
the extra
Hello?
bit, you know, the extra bit on the edge. It's
Okay,
like
buddy.
if you have, you can apparently upgrade them. All right, so yeah, it's because it's one of those things of like, if you're gonna be dropping like 2-3K to go on this massive trip, and you're like some hotshot professional who's bought like every single massive supporter pack for the last like 20 years, then the extra like $300-$500 in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big, you know. For what it is, I think it's pretty cool to have Jonathan make you food. That's pretty sick. Like
That is pretty
just from like a story point of view, that's kind of like, oh yeah, Path of Exile, yeah, I played that. One of the lead developers made me food once. No biggie. It was, you know.
I think that's it, boys. I don't know.
The only final closing thought, just to say.
Yeah.
What did you think of the artwork? Because the artwork from the thing seems to be like 4.0 stuff, and it was all like haunted, twisted woods.
Oh my god.
And I thought that shit looked
From
sick.
the site, you mean?
Yeah, on the website, on the actual website,
Yeah.
it has the weird like goat skeletal treant thing. I thought it looked really cool. And we haven't seen that art style in PoE yet. So it's like, is this like new zones? Like, what is this? I don't know. I think that shit's cool.
It looks a little Katarina-ish too. I mean, did you see the bottom right? The guy in the tree
Yeah.
on the page? Yeah.
That's like very almost like Game of Thrones kind of
Yeah.
Blood Raven.
That was cool.
Oh, do our professional... You probably can't say anything if you did. Do you know anything about these races that we're meant to be having at ExileCon?
What?
What?
No.
What? See, I don't have any of this
I mean,
privy
even if it is,
information, chat.
I cannot confirm nor deny anything.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're gonna go with that line.
No comment.
I think usually
comment.
if there is a final at a LAN event, there are chances that there is also a qualifier to participate in that final. So I think maybe some people should start practicing. That's all I'm saying.
See, I have this running joke with my chat, because people often think, like, with the host of Baeclast, it's like, Tarke, I need you to pass this message personally on to Chris. I have to say to people, like, I don't really have that kind of insider info. I have the kind of insider info of, I might maybe know that a new MTX might be a certain color. That's, like, my level. And then it's kind of like the Ziggy level who knows the league, like, 5 years in advance. And then there's the, maybe there's a qualifier possible level somewhere. So, you know. Celestial Cats, by the way. I was very impressed.
What?
With that. Celestial Cats.
He's
Celestial
gonna be
Sovereign.
flogging that for.
That's gonna be going on CVs, like legit, like you know. I once got an MTX into a game, like full stop.
We're gonna be 5.1, and we'll be talking about Celestial Cat Soul Rend after Soul Rend gets reworked for the 3rd time or something.
Yeah. I actually have an interview on Monday as a weekly volunteer at a cattery, and I'll see if I can finagle. Well, actually, fun thing about cats, cat MTX. I'll see if I can get that into the conversation somehow.
Is cattery? Is that like an English word or something? I have never heard that before. I've never heard cattery used before. Is that like an adoption center, but specifically only for cats?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it's pretty straightforward as to what it might mean. It's in the name. But thank you for adding another word to my vocabulary. I'll try and find an excuse to use it at some point soon.
And on that, guys, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into Baeclast of the 38, first Son of Synthesis League. Really curious to see what the next one has to do with the next change going on. And that was the traditional smooth, talky, you know, outro. I'll play the thing now. We can wait. And...
I'm not gonna talk over it this time. I promise.
You just talked over it then, dude.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, that's... That was that. Oh, that's yeah, it's over now. We did that thing. I feel like we had so much like steam. Like we expelled so much energy on the synthesis thing. It's just kind of like I could do with a nap. I could do like a hot lemon and a water bottle and a bit of a lie down. You know what I mean?
I feel like
as we don't with ExileCon, I really want to go and I'm really looking forward to it, but I don't have a lot to say about it outside of that. Like, yeah, it's gonna be cool. I want to go.
Yeah.
We need some more information before we can really start talking about it, right? Otherwise, it's just pure speculation, which is not really getting us anywhere.
I feel like by the time this goes on YouTube, GG's gonna like release a statement on the entire league and everything, and like everything we talked about is gonna be
100%.
irrelevant.
Yeah.
There's also going to be a bottom line. The following members of Baeclast have been barred from ExileCon.
It was a lot of complaining. What can you do?
I mean,
I
Should have released a better league, lol.
for fuck's sake.
Okay.
Guys,
What
we're
about?
still live. Wait till we're done.
Have you guys been crashing at all?
I've actually had no crashes.
Okay.
0.
Okay, I'll tell. Yesterday, I crashed 50 times. We were trying to push Steel to crash 69. The last thing I heard was like 65.
Yeah.
In one day.
Nugi, can I offer you some advice?
How crazy is that?
Maybe your PC should just build better defense.
Yeah, maybe.
Isn't god? Oh, damn, that's deep. Isn't that the same PC that Ziz would crash like 140 times in a day and stuff? I don't know.
Dude, we're running the same content like 2 days in a row. Like first day, nothing. Patch, 60 crashes. I think it's something to do with the patch.
I had a bit of the... See, this is one thing which I feel kind of bad about. So it's like, I had a little bit of lag day one of Syndicate. Since then, I've had 0 issues. I know people are still crashing with intervention. I've been like literally just farming Syndicate for the last few days. I have no lag whatsoever.
Do you have a solid state drive?
Yes. Not even...
Because I've heard that's one of the things that makes the biggest difference with the Syndicate lag in particular. I don't know about other specific crashes with like the Memory Nexus or anything, but I have a solid state drive as well. I've had no issues with interventions.
Yeah.
A lot of other people that I talk to who have those, no issues with interventions, and then the people that complain to me about interventions almost invariably don't.
Yeah.
So there might be some issue there. Obviously, the advice isn't necessarily go out and buy a solid state drive just for this, though they're a nice addition. You should
They're
But
not
dude,
that expensive these days, to be honest.
Literally do.
Yeah.
But
It's
like
like the best thing for Pee-wee.
It really
it
is.
might be what's causing it, and hopefully GGG find a fix soon.
Literally buy one.
But like the thing is, and it's like, because people always mean like, oh, you guys don't get it because you say the same shit. I've had a guy send me like 5 emails, and he's like, look, this is my computer specs, I can't work it out. And I actually told him, do you remember back in beta, you'd open up the config file and you would disable your sounds because sounds would cause lag and stuff. And I was like, open up the config file, maybe try disabling your sound, see if that does anything. And he's like, nope, it's not working. It's completely fucked, so I can't play at all. And then the hotfix that went out yesterday is like, oh, it's fine now. It works. I'm like, oh. Cool. So.
Damn. All right, boys, I'm gonna head out. Okay. I got a ladder push. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do the intro again since we added an extra bit on.
You're doing an extra intro?
Yeah, we're still talking through this one, so don't worry. It's just as good as the one before. So I'll drop the call now, and I'll see you guys soon. Cheers for that.